Is there anything wrong? Princess Maya. Lear looked at Maya. Maya bit her lip, her eyes fixed on Mina with a complicated expression. Mina is her sister, who ran away from the parliament several years ago. She doesn't know what her sister has done, but she is wanted by her mother for stealing the forbidden arcane book. The path to the soul was forbidden, her mother had told her. She didn't know what taboos were. She knew that Mina was her sister and she had always liked her sister. Since she was a child, her sister had been hailed as a genius in arcane arts, and Mina had always been her admirer. Special Executive Lear, I know my sister made a big mistake by doing this. I don't expect you to let her go, but can you please not hurt her? Maya's tone was sincere and humble. Lear was a little surprised. In his previous life, he had never heard of any deep feelings between the two sisters. On the contrary, after becoming queen, Maya was more strict in capturing Mina and even issued tasks with rich rewards among players. Princess Maya, how I treat Mina does not depend on me, but on Mina herself. Lear replied calmly, she is my prisoner now. If you, the Arcane Council, want to rescue her, we can talk about it after I get the spell I want. What is the value of a princess in your hearts? After saying this, Lear took Milia, picked up Mina and turned away. Dival looked at this scene and although he wanted to say something, he said nothing in the end. He didn't know what was going on between Lear and Mina, but it was a fact that Mina had broken into the Pope's Hall and even set up a magic circle to harm the church's special executive. And now that Lear has captured Mina, Lear has the power to judge Mina, and even the Arcane Council can't say anything. What are you going to do with her? Milia asked unhappily as she walked side by side with Lear on the cobblestone road. Lock him up first. Lear looked at Mina, who remained silent, and said, like the woman before? Do you like to hide some weird women so much? Milia stretched out her hand and twisted Lear's waist fiercely. Mina, who had been carried by Lear, changed her expression slightly when she heard the conversation between the two, as if she had heard something extraordinary. Could it be that the special executive of the Church of War has a habit of hiding women for enjoyment? Thinking of this, Mina couldn't help but worry about her future fate. She didn't want to be forcibly possessed by Lear. Lear didn't notice Mina's expression. He felt the pain in his waist and his eyes twitched slightly. It seemed that only women could twist the waist. Was it a skill engraved in their blood? Thinking in his heart, Lear suddenly felt confused. Milia seemed to know a lot about Ophelia. It was the same when she was fighting with Sylvia just now. Milia knew that Ophelia would be transformed into a blood believer by her. Milia, how do you know about her affairs? Lear asked. Don't forget what kind of power my Morning Star Law possesses. Milia glanced at Lear, as if to say, there is nothing I don't know. Lear's expression became a little embarrassed. He remembered Milia's astrology, which could predict the future. Thinking that he would go to the old dreamland from time to time to visit Eno and Adele, Lear felt like a thorn in his side. There is a guilty feeling of being caught doing something bad. Don't worry, my astrology has no effect on you for some reason. Milia shook her head. She knew that no one liked to have their actions spied on. Lear was stunned for a moment. He didn't know why Milia explained it this way, but he soon reacted. He smiled and said calmly, I don't mind you checking my future. You are my wife. Even if you saw it, it must be for me. I am not such a stingy person. Lear gently pulled Milia into his arms. Milia was obviously stunned by Lear's reaction. In her time, because the law of the Morning Star could peek into the future of others, it was regarded as an evil force for a period of time and everyone wanted to kill it. This is also the reason why Milia is unwilling to spread the law of the Morning Star now. She didn't want the law of Morning Star to be rejected again, and even if she wanted to spread it, she planned to greatly weaken the power of astrology before teaching it. Seeing that Lear's eyes gradually softened, I will remember what you said, she said, resting her head on Lear's shoulder. Mina, who had been carried by Lear, watched this scene and felt as if her mouth was filled with rations for no apparent reason. The two returned to the bedroom. Lear closed the door, then took out a piece of cloth to cover Mina's eyes, and stuffed her lips with a piece of cloth. Mina wanted to struggle, but the next moment she felt a cold chain binding her. Not only that, the chain was also devouring her physical strength, causing her body to slowly lose strength. The special executive officer of the Church of War actually likes to play with bondage? Mina's panic reached its peak. and she thought of the novels about perverted nobles that she had read. Those shameful scenes kept playing in her mind. As the eldest princess of the Kalia royal family, when had she ever been treated like this? Even though she was wanted by her mother, she knew that she would be put in solitary confinement at most when she returned, but now she was completely panicked. Whoa, Mina kept twisting and struggling on the bed. Milia looked at Mina strangely. Lear had tied her up like this before and she felt so ashamed at that time. But now it seems that this is not just as simple as shame, it is also very tempting. Milia, since you know everything, I will take you to see it. Lear seemed to be accustomed to such scenes. He just glanced at Mina lightly, and then a crimson portal appeared in the room. A strong breath of blood law emanated from the portal. Milia was a little curious. Since she killed the blasphemous spirit last time, she had never entered the old dream of the Blood King city again. She had never asked for it actively, after all, that was Lillian's territory. Let's go? Lear took Milia's hand, waved his hand and used the chain to float Mina up, and the three of them walked into the portal. Mina had no idea what was happening. She could only struggle and make whimpering sounds, and then she felt dizzy. Lear and his two companions appeared in a magnificent city. The thick fog obscured most of the city, leaving only the central city gate and a small area around it. With the current efficiency of the Blood Elves, it is still impossible to rebuild the entire royal city, so Lear used the authority of the Dream Core to hide other areas in the thick fog. Even if players arrive, they can only move within the limited area of the royal city. The range of the thick fog can actually be said to be an air wall. Seeing Lear appear, the Blood Elves who were still repairing buildings on the city wall all showed excited expressions. Lear waved his hand, nodded to the Blood Elves, and then took Milia into the royal city. The city gate has restored its former splendor of the Blood King city and looks extremely majestic. Entering the city, there are clean and tidy streets leading all the way to the deepest part, as if the Blood King city has really reappeared in the world, but the places farther away are still shrouded in fog. The Blood King city is now about the size of a small town, with pharmacies, blacksmith shops, etc. At the end of the road is a huge statue, which depicts the mature appearance of Lillian. Next is the Blood Temple. Deep in the temple is the palace and throne that the Blood Elves built for Lear. Lear brought Milia directly to the temple, where Eno and Adele were fighting. After such a long period of training, both of them also gained powerful strength in the dream trial, and the fight was back and forth. Seeing Lear appear, the two women were delighted. They immediately stopped what they were doing and ran to Lear. "Master!" The two said in unison, and then saw Milia beside them and saluted, "Your Highness the Princess." "So Lear has been hiding you here?" Milia said with a smile. It was just as she said, she did not casually pry into the future of Lear and the people around Lear. She just thought Ophelia was a trouble, so she took a quick look at her. She did not casually pry into other people. After hearing what Milia said, Eno and the other girl felt a little embarrassed and blushed, but they didn't say anything. End of this chapter. Chapter 199, Milia and Ophanina's meeting. The blood cults planned to appear in the world. After chatting with Lear for a while, Eno saw another woman tied up by Lear. Mina was tied up completely. Eno had seen such a situation before. "Master, who is she?" Eno asked with a strange expression. "She is a wanted criminal of the Arcane Council, a great wizard of the extraordinary level. Find a room to lock her up first. Don't let her know where this place is. Don't let her see anyone except you two. Just make sure she doesn't starve to death." Lear threw Mina to the ground. A great wizard of extraordinary level? Eno and Adele both widened their eyes, unable to imagine that a powerful man of extraordinary level was captured by Lear like this. On the ground, Mina felt powerless and could only listen to the conversation between Lear and several other people. After the dizziness, she clearly felt that the environment had changed. The air around her was filled with an uncomfortable atmosphere, but she could not see it. Lear glanced at Mina lying on the ground. He had no intention of revealing his identity. He just wanted to put Mina in the old dream so that no one could find her. Mina could not escape either. And by letting Eno and Adele look after her, he did not have to worry about Mina noticing anything unusual. "Milia, how long can your Morningstar sealing technique last?" Lear turned his head and asked. "About a day." "She's too weak." Milia glanced at Mina. "Is that so?" Lear nodded. If that was the case, he would need to come and suck blood once a day to suck all the magic power out of Mina's body. Although it was a bit troublesome, there was no other way. Take her away and lock her up first, I'll come back later. Lear gave another instruction to Eno and Adele. The two women took action, helped Mina up from the ground and left. Okay, they've all left. You brought me here not just to meet your little lover, right? After the two women left, Milia glanced at Lear. Lear smiled helplessly, then said, I'll take you to see Ophelia. With that, Lear walked in another direction, and Milia followed without hesitation. In a small room, Ophanina lazily looked at the book in her hand. During this period of time, she read all the banned books that she was not convenient to read when she was a saint. After choosing to become Lear, I felt relaxed and faith didn't seem to be that important. She reached out and picked up the teacup on the table, took a sip, and when she saw the exciting part, a strange light flashed in Ophanina's eyes, and even her cheeks turned slightly red. Damned heretic, I'm going to take revenge on you for what you did to me before. In the book, the imprisoned nun finally turned defeat into victory. Just when Ophanina thought that the nun would fight against the heretics, the plot took a turn. The nun holding the staff stood there without moving. She looked more and more struggling. The handsome heretic demon on the ground stood up, walked in front of the nun, and revealed an evil smile. Give up, you can't do it. The devil gently lifted the nun's chin. You have already fallen in love with me, haven't you? Watching this plot, Ophanina's hand holding the book trembled slightly, and her mood became complicated at this moment. She thought of Lear. Her feelings towards Lear are complicated, from the curiosity and affection when they first met, to the anger at being drugged and imprisoned, and now she seems to have become accustomed to Lear's persecution of her. I'm really crazy, Ophanina said self-deprecatingly. Behind her, Lear and Milia had entered the room at some point. Looking at the contents of the book in Ophanina's hand, their expressions were a little strange. I didn't expect that Her Highness the Saint would have such a hobby. Lear coughed lightly and spoke out, Huh? Ah. The sudden voice startled Ophelia. When she turned around and saw Lear, she was shocked. The teacup in his hand fell onto the table, and the book in his hand also fell off the table. Lear chuckled, walked around to the other side of the table, picked up a book and started reading, The Forbidden Love Between a Heretic Demon and a Holy Nun. Lear read the title of the book. Hearing the name, Ophanina's face turned red instantly. Seeing Lear's half-smile, she wished she could find a hole in the ground to crawl into. Lear opened the book and turned to the page that Ophelia had just read. After seeing the content, he walked to Ophelia and lifted her chin like the devil in the plot. So, has Her Highness the Saint fallen in love with me? The strong masculine scent hit her in the face, making Ophanina feel suffocated. She blushed for a while before she uttered a sentence, Who would fall in love with a bastard like you? After saying that, she snatched the book from Lear's hand and hid it in her storage items. Ahem. Milia, who was not far away, watched this scene and glared at Lear fiercely. And now Lear is really going too far. He is flirting with his hidden lover in front of his legal wife. Lear realized that after seeing the plot in Ophanina's book, he had the idea of teasing her and almost forgot that Miria was still there. Well, it's just a joke. Lear pretended to be serious. Ophanina, who was standing by, also saw Milia. She keenly felt the aura of heresy and law coming from Milia, which was so strong that it frightened her. Are you Princess Milia? Ophanina looked at the familiar yet unfamiliar girl in front of her in shock. When she was imprisoned in the royal city of Brayfield, Milia came to see her and they talked. At that time, she thought that Milia was a fallen girl imprisoned by Lear just like her. Now it seems that Lear and Miriam have been having an affair for a long time. Long time no see, Miss Ophanina. Milia smiled and nodded slightly. You guys, Ophanina suddenly felt so ignorant. We are all heretics. Lear chuckled and said, Milia had a fight with your mother not long ago. What? Ophanina was even more shocked. Although she felt the terrifying aura from Milia, she didn't think Milia could be a match for her mother. Not everyone is as perverted as Lear. Milia is also a professional of extraordinary level. Your mother was beaten badly. Lear looked at Ophelia seriously and said. Upon hearing this, Ophelia's expression became anxious. Lear's serious expression did not seem to be a lie. Lear, you said, I said I would not do anything to your mother. Lear interrupted Ophelia's words, but Sylvia offended Milia, and I would not stop Milia if she wanted to do it. But you can rest assured. I asked Milia to show mercy. Your mother only suffered some minor injuries. After hearing the first half of Lear's words, Ophelia almost collapsed. and only recovered when Lear said that Sylvia was fine. Okay, stop scaring her. Milia looked at Lear angrily. She actually felt quite sympathetic towards Ophelia. After all, Ophanina's situation was similar to hers at the beginning, but the queen came later, so her situation with Lear changed. If the queen had not come, she would probably have been imprisoned and severely bullied by Lear like Ophanina. Milia glanced at Lear. At that time, Lear said that he imprisoned the saint in order to strike first and prevent her from being discovered by the Golden Church, but now it seems that all that was just a trick to fool her. Go out, I want to talk to Ophanina. Milia glanced at Lear and said in a commanding tone. Hearing this, Lear was stunned for a moment, and under Milia's serious gaze, he could only leave the room first. After Lear left the room, Milia reached out and cast a soundproof magic shield outside the house. Lear looked at the dark blue shield, feeling helpless, and could only wait obediently. About half an hour later, the soundproof shield disappeared, and Milia pulled Ophanina out. Ophanina's cheeks were flushed. Lear didn't know what Milia said, but he felt that Ophanina's eyes seemed to have changed when she looked at him. Lear wanted to ask something, but was forcibly pulled away by Milia, leaving Ophelia alone in the house. Only after they walked away did Milia say, I've checked for you. Bufangina is very good and should not cause any harm to you. Ah. Lear was stunned. If you want her to become the blood saint, you must ensure her loyalty, right? I don't feel comfortable leaving a woman who once believed in the golden law by your side. Milia curled her lips. Is this why you talked to Ophanina for so long? Lear looked at Miria with a softened look in his eyes. Not only that, I also asked you what you did to her. You touched her all over. I knew how you would let go of such a beautiful saint. Milia suddenly turned her head and looked at Lear with a smile. Lear's expression froze instantly and he couldn't refute. All of this happened involuntarily while he was sucking blood, and it was a sign of his good willpower that he didn't take the last step of seeing Lear's silence. Milia smiled. She was not blaming Lear. She didn't mind Lear having other women, but he couldn't just hide any woman and take her home. Since you have done that with Ophelia, I will no longer object to you doing something to her, but I hope you can tell me about this kind of thing in the future. I don't want any wild woman to be able to enter our home. Milia said seriously. Looking at Milia's expression, Lear nodded seriously and took out a red necklace from his storage ring. I promise you, he said, and then put the gem on Milia's neck. This is a gem that can open the old dream of the Blood King city. It can spontaneously absorb external energy to recharge. It can be used once a day. You can come here anytime you want in the future, but it's better to hide your face and your information. Lear continued, you know, I have recruited some, well, aliens. I will give them permission to come here. Of course, there won't be many of them, but you may encounter them. In the outside world, you are the wife of the special executive officer of the Church of War. This is the capital of the blood cult. The affairs of the Blood King cannot be exposed, so, I understand what you mean. Picking up the gem hanging around her neck, Miria's eyes shone with a strange light. As long as those aliens don't discover my identity, it will be fine, right? Can you avoid the aliens' reconnaissance skills? Lear asked. Of course. Milia nodded. She was the goddess of Morningstar, so this was easy for her. She was investigated before because she felt there was no need to hide. Now that she has decided to show up, she might as well be open about it. So are you going to start spreading the faith of the blood law next? Milia asked. Yes. What are you going to do? I'm thinking of talking to Duval about building a blood temple in Soros, said Lear. Milia was shocked by Lear's idea. Are you sure you are not kidding? She knew that Lear had previously broken into the Pope's Hall and humiliated the Church of War. Now he wanted to build the blood temple in Soros and compete with the Church of War for faith. Doesn't Duval have any respect? The war trial is about to begin, and all the war believers will be recruited afterwards. I can talk to Duval about this. Lear said confidently. Although he had broken into the Pope's Hall before, this loss of face was nothing compared to interests. Allow players of the blood cult to enter the war trial to help the war church suppress the beast of extinction. Moreover, he could also declare that he would help the Church of War complete the war trial as the Blood King. Given his relationship with the goddess of war should not refuse. Things sealed in the new war trial are absolutely not allowed to be released. He had participated in the war trial in his previous life, and the battle was extremely brutal. If it weren't for the descent of the goddess of war at the end, I'm afraid all the high-level leaders of the war church would have died. It can be seen that even the goddess of war attaches great importance to the seal thing. The beast of extinction is immortal, and every time it breaks the seal it is a disaster for the church of war. Duval will definitely not refuse a powerful ally, otherwise, if he attacked the war church during the war trial, Duval would be powerless to stop him. Emilia looked at the smile on Lear's face suspiciously, wondering how Lear was going to make Duval compromise. The two walked out of the blood temple together. Emilia planned to go out, but Lear still wanted to target Mina. After all, the Morning Star sealing technique only lasted for 1 day. Moreover, he had been coveting Mina's arcane book for a long time. From now on, I will cast the Morning Star sealing spell on Mina. You are not allowed to suck blood. Emilia stared at Lear. Lear had looked through Ophelia, and she would never let Lear have the chance to do whatever he wanted to Mina again. Seeing Emilia's tough look, Lear had no choice but to compromise, and the two of them walked towards the room where Mina was imprisoned. The end of this chapter, chapter 200, the arcane book recording the soul taboos. Following the guidance of the blood mark, Lear quickly brought Emilia to the place where Mina was imprisoned. Mina slumped on the bed, the bloody shackles on her body had been untied, but there was still a shackle tied around her ankle. There was only a bed and a table in the room, not even a window. There was only a small window on the closed door, separated by metal railings. Mina could only see the marble wall behind the small window. She looked at the small window with despair. She had tried it just now, but the strength in her body was completely gone. She was just an ordinary person now, and it was impossible for her to open the door and leave. Just when she was at a loss, the iron door of the room suddenly shook. Lear opened the iron door and walked in, followed by Emilia. Seeing Lear suddenly appear, Mina's eyes became fierce, but after staring at Lear for a long time, she turned her head and looked away. She understood her current situation, and any direct resistance would only increase the danger. I didn't expect that IOU would arrange you in such a good place. I obviously just wanted to throw you into the underground prison. Lear looked down at Mina and took in the furnishings in the room. The room was quite clean, and the bed was no different from that in an ordinary blood elf residence. Apart from being a little simple, it was no different from an ordinary guest room. Hearing Lear's words, Mina's anger was aroused again. Do you dare to let me go and have a fair fight? Don't rely on that woman, Mina roared. In her opinion, she was caught so easily because of Lear's wife, Milia. She saw the battle between Milia and Sylvia. Milia's strength was unquestionable, but she didn't expect that her magic circle would be ineffective against Lear and Milia. Moreover, Milia actually has the ability to seal the power of law. Why does such an ability exist? It is totally unreasonable. The reason why the spell failed when Lear hugged her was probably because of Milia. There was a hint of fear in Mina's eyes as she looked at Miria. Feeling Mina's gaze, Milia had a blank expression on her face. She had seen such gazes many times. The prohibitions and predictive abilities of the Chinching law were always targeted in various ways. Milia is my wife, and it is not a matter of course that I rely on her. Lear did not want to pay attention to Mina's provocation. He just wanted to see what Mina's arcane book was. Ignoring Mina's glare that seemed to be spitting fire, he slowly approached. What do you want to do? Mina leaned back subconsciously and even picked up the quilt on the bed to cover herself. Lear didn't answer. He just lifted up the quilt and pulled it off. Show me your arcane book. You're dreaming. When Mina heard the word arcane book, her eyes widened like a cat with its fur standing on end. Seeing Mina's excitement, Lear sighed. I'm not discussing this with you. As he said that, he grabbed Mina's hands. Just when he was about to search her, he suddenly felt a chill on his back and paused. He almost forgot that Milia was still watching. Pressing Mina down on the bed, Lear turned his head and said, Milia, help me search. Hearing this, Milia snorted, walked to Lear, got close to Mina and began to explore. Mina, who was pinned down by Lear, felt a pleasant fragrance reaching her nose, and a pair of hands began to grope her body. Her face instantly turned red, and a strange feeling emerged in her heart. After groping for a while, Milia finally found a lavender pendant in the crack on Mina's chest. Seeing the purple pendant, Mina's eyes trembled slightly and her silver teeth bit her lips tightly, but in the end she looked away and her eyes became dim like a broken doll. I'm just taking a look at your arcane book. Don't act like I'm defiled you. Lear slapped Mina's buttocks in annoyance. The pain from behind ignited the emotions that Mina had just suppressed. The pendant was a gift from her mother. It was a storage item, and all her wealth was inside it. Lear took away everything she had, and yet he still said such sarcastic words. Suddenly, Mina was so angry that she bit Lear's chest with all her strength. Hiss! Lear took a breath of cold air. This attack could not cause any harm to him, but the pain was real. He loosened his grip on Mina's hands and moved a little away from her. He lowered his head and saw that the clothes on his chest had been bitten through. A little blood came out, but it healed quickly. Mina sat up in bed, still looking at Lear fiercely. What a vicious woman! Lear raised his eyebrows. He did not provoke Mina again, but looked at Milia on the side. Milia was holding the pendant, and terrifying magic power surged into it. The defense set up by Mina was broken in an instant. After searching the pendant for a while, Milia took out a dark book. Is this what you want? Milia looked at the book in her hand. There was a powerful force contained in the book, but even she couldn't tell what it was. Seeing the book, Lear's face lit up with joy. That's it. He had seen this arcane book in his previous life and was deeply impressed. After the spell is parsed, this arcane book will become a relic of law. It can replace the staff and be used as a weapon for casting spells. It is very powerful. After hearing Lear's reply, Milia threw the arcane book over, then looked at the pendant in her hand and gave it back to Mina. Looking at the pendant thrown on the bed by Milia, Mina had not yet reacted. This should be a very important thing, right? Don't you want it anymore? Milia smiled at Mina. Mina finally came to her senses. She quickly picked up the pendant and then looked at Milia with a complicated expression. Thank you. Milia said nothing more, but just looked at Lear. Lear held the Book of Arcane, and the information in the Book of Arcane appeared directly in front of his eyes. Item name: Arcane Book recording Soul Taboos. Introduction: the soul is an absolute taboo, and anyone who explores the mystery of the soul will be cursed. This is the masterpiece of the former genius wizard Douglas. As a genius of the Arcane Council, he embarked on this road of no return and left this forbidden arcane book at the last moment of his life. Effect: only a true arcane genius can peek into the mysteries contained in this book. When you have analyzed the secrets of the arcane book, this arcane book will become a powerful weapon for you. Looking at the information displayed on the system panel, Lear fell silent. It was the first time he had seen such an ambiguous introduction. Whether now or in his previous life, any spell book or law relic he had seen had clear usage requirements, such as requirements for attributes or law affinity. But this book has none of that. What is true genius? Lear opened the Book of Arcane Magic, and the densely packed spell runes on it made his head ache. Obviously, he is not a genius. Since only a genius can decipher the secrets of this arcane book, let the genius do it. Lear raised his head and looked at Mina lying on the bed. Mina was holding the pendant at this time, still looking at Lear with hostility. Looking at Mina's appearance, Lear threw the arcane book back. Seeing Lear's actions, Mina was stunned again. He held her down by force, snatched her pendant and arcane book, and now returned them all to her. Was he playing a trick on her? I can't understand this book. Lear said frankly. Instead of letting it gather dust here, I should give it to someone who needs it and analyze the secrets of the arcane book. Only then can the value of this arcane book be brought into play. Mina understood the meaning of Lear's words. You want me to analyze the spell and give it to you? You imprison me, and you still want me to help you analyze the spell book? Mina said sarcastically, looking at Lear, who seemed to have regained some confidence. Yes, you can choose to refuse, but then you will have to stay in this room for the rest of your life. No one will come to save you, not even your mother. She won't be able to find you. Lear nodded. Don't doubt what I say. I can tell you clearly that you are no longer in Soros. I think you should be able to feel the atmosphere around you. Lear continued, before you analyze the spell and hand it over to me, I will not accept any conditions offered by the Arcane Council in exchange for you. Perhaps you can take a gamble and see if your mother will go to war with the Church of War for you? Following Lear's indifferent words, the room fell into silence. Mina didn't know what to say. Now that she was imprisoned, she could indeed feel that the atmosphere around her was completely different from Soros. The smell of war disappeared, replaced by an atmosphere she had never felt before. Is a teleportation, she thought to herself. Do I really have to compromise with this hateful man in front of me? Let's make a deal, shall we? Lear said again, if you analyze the spell and give it to me, I will let you go without notifying the Arcane Council. You can go wherever you want and I won't interfere. You can also make some other requests. As long as they are not excessive, I can agree to them. This was Lear's final concession. He was indeed very interested in this forbidden spell, but it was not necessary for him to obtain it. With his current strength, Getting the spell was just icing on the cake. Mina was in a dilemma. After thinking for a moment, she gritted her teeth and said, "Will you keep your word?" "I swear in the name of the laws of war. As long as you analyze the spell and hand it over to me, I will let you go unharmed." Lear replied, "Swearing in the name of the law, this is a very solid oath." Mina finally believed Lear's words. "I promised you, so you can let me go?" She kicked her feet, and the shackles that bound her life made a rattling sound. "This is insurance, Princess Mina." Lear looked at the chain and shook his head. "To prevent you from leaving. Your range of movement will still be restricted. I will talk to Ino and ask him to change you to a better room. You can make all reasonable requests to Ino, but you are still a prisoner until you finish analyzing the spell." "Is this how you negotiate a deal with someone?" Mina said angrily. "This is a deal between us, and of course the deal has to be guaranteed." Lear chuckled. Mina had no choice but to compromise. The deal was done and Lear was in a good mood. When Lear went to Mina's bookstore to threaten Mina before, he was just giving it a try. He also thought about capturing Mina directly, but the extraordinary level of combat fluctuations would attract the attention of the Church of War, so he gave up. At that time, Lear completely forgot about Milia's morning star sealing technique. If he had known that Milia could directly seal Mina, why would he just threaten her and leave? "I'm afraid Mina has been arrested long ago. Should the ban on me be lifted?" Mina suddenly said. Hearing this, Lear's eyes became dangerous. "Unlock the ban? How is that possible? He couldn't possibly allow a great wizard of the extraordinary level to stay in the old dream." "Don't look at me like that. I don't want to escape. How can I study the arcane book if you have sealed my arcane laws?" Mina said unhappily. Lear was stunned for a moment. This seemed to make some sense, but once the ban is lifted, Mina's safety cannot be guaranteed. For a moment, Lear was inexplicably distressed. After thinking for a moment, he turned his head and looked at Milia. "Milia, can your morning star sealing technique set a magic array area? For example, if you enter the range of the magic circle, your power of law will be blocked." After much thought, Lear could only think of using the morning star sealing technique to form a magic circle that covered the entire house. Nothing would happen in the house, but once he wanted to leave the house, he would be sealed by the power. It's like the eye of a typhoon in the previous life. "Of course you can." Milia thought for a moment and nodded. A smile appeared on Lear's face. If he could isolate Mina's room with a sealing array, it would be much safer, but he still needed to take a precaution. "I can remove the seal on you, but you must also swear to the arcane law. During the spell analysis, you are not allowed to leave the room, and you are not allowed to use spells to harm anyone you see," Lear said seriously. "Okay." Mina nodded. Lear also nodded, and after watching Mina finish her legal oath, he bound Mina with the life-binding shackles again. "What are you doing? Do you want to break your promise?" Mina, who was tied up, looked pale. "I'm just taking you to another room. I won't do anything to you and will let you go later." Lear smiled, took out a piece of cloth to cover Mina's eyes, and then picked up Mina and went out. After an unknown amount of time, when Mina saw the light again, everything had changed. The room became bigger and more comfortable, and Lear took her to a new room. "You stay here from now on. If there is any problem, notify Ino and ask her to tell me and I will handle it." Lear pointed at Ino beside him. After saying that, he left the room with Milia. Only Mina and Ino were left. Mina stretched her hands and felt that the power of arcane law in her body had resumed flowing. She walked to the window and looked out. The dark blue magic circle obscured everything and she could not see anything. End of this chapter. Chapter 201. Players enter the Blood King city for the first time. Special Executive Lear. Someone came to the door early the next morning. Looking at Maya and Erwin, father and daughter, Lear smiled and said, "Please come in, all three of you." He opened the door and let the three people in. Milia had just finished washing up and was drinking morning tea while reading the novel she got from Ophelia yesterday. Die in the sunlight, the girl's hair shone with crystal light, making Milia look even more beautiful. Maya looked at the girl who was reading seriously and inexplicably felt ashamed. Although she felt that there was no difference between herself and Miria in appearance, their strengths and temperaments were completely different. Milia just glanced at the three people who entered the room and ignored them. Lear took Maya and the other two to sit on the sofa nearby. Everyone sat down. Erwin glanced at Maya and then said, "Special Executive Lear, we are here today for Princess Mina's matter. Lier had a smile on his face, half leaning on the sofa without saying a word, just looking at Erwin quietly. Seeing Lear's attitude, Alvin sighed in his heart. Mina was captured by Lear. Although it was her own fault, Mina was the daughter of the speaker and the eldest princess of the Kalia royal family after all. He couldn't bear to see Mina being humiliated. I came here today to apologize for the princess's recklessness. It was wrong for the princess to break into the church and attack Special Executive Officer Lear, but I still hope that Special Executive Officer Lear can forgive Her Highness the Princess. If Lord Elwyn is willing to release Her Royal Highness the Princess, the Parliament can make compensation. Elwyn said carefully, paying attention to Lear's attitude as he spoke, but Lear still had a faint smile on his face, as if he hadn't heard what Erwin said. He picked up the teapot on the table and poured himself another cup of tea. Lear then said calmly, I can't leave Mina to you. He turned his head and looked at Erwin. Mina has offended the church, she should be punished, but you are right, she is the eldest princess of the Kalia royal family. For the sake of the Arcane Council, I will treat her well. Master Erwin can rest assured about this. What do you want to do to your sister? Maya, who was standing by, saw that Lier rejected Erwin's proposal and couldn't help but said, I heard you talking to your sister yesterday. You want your sister's magic, right? You can tell us what spell you want and the council will give it to you. Maya said anxiously. You can't give me the magic I want. Lier shook his head. Can't give. Maya was stunned. What kind of spell could the Parliament not give her? Suddenly, she remembered why her sister was wanted by her mother. Are you looking for the spells in the forbidden spell book? Maya came to her senses. Hearing this, Lear just glanced at Maya and did not answer. Erwin was also stunned for a moment. He was the one who was responsible for capturing Mina, and he knew the reason very well. The forbidden book of spells has been placed on the top of the Parliament's library for a long time. Lorena forbids anyone to get close to it and take a look. It is said that it is an arcane book for studying the soul, left behind by former Speaker Douglas. He is also the father of the current Speaker Lorena. No one knew how Douglas died. One day, he suddenly announced that he would hand over the position of Speaker to his daughter Lorena, and then he died a few days later. Special Executive Officer Lear. Erwin wanted to say something. It's time for you to leave, Master Elvin. Lier didn't want to continue this topic and directly ordered them to leave. The words he wanted to say were stuck in his throat. Looking at Lier's indifferent eyes, Erwin could only sigh. Special Executive Lier, we will not return to Kalia immediately. The speaker will come to Soros in a few days, and we will talk to you again then. Something about Princess Mina and arcane counterattack. Erwin said the last words and had to leave with Twinia and the reluctant Maya. Only after the three people left the room did Milia return to the house from the balcony. Who is the Speaker of the Arcane Council? Milia asked curiously. Lorena Kyla. Lier said a name, a half-saint level wizard, probably on the same level as Duval. The leaders of the three major Orthodox religions are all of similar strength, and are all semi-saints. Is that so? Milia nodded thoughtfully. She had already felt Duval's strength. If he was just on the same level as Duval, then there was no need to worry too much. Time passes little by little. Lear doesn't need to worry about the cooperation among the three major sects, and he is happy to be a leisurely person these days. Maya would come to him from time to time, and tried every possible excuse to see Mina, but Lear refused them all. When resting at night, Lear could sometimes feel a faint spiritual force searching his room, but he didn't care. Maya searched the entire Pope's Hall, but in the end she couldn't find Mina's whereabouts, as if Mina had disappeared out of thin air. She even found Duval in the end, but Lear still did not let Maya see Mina, but just said that Mina was placed in a safe place. In a blink of an eye, a week has passed. At the suburban horse farm, the week-long selection has come to an end, and those who remain are the true elites. Juan looked at the 1,000 people in front of her and nodded with satisfaction. There were still a few days left before the 1 month required by Mr. Munger, so this could be considered as completing the task ahead of schedule. When will the portal be opened? Wudi Zwijenlang asked loudly in the crowd. Finally, he chose the blood cult. Although he witnessed Milia's strength, he couldn't touch her at all. He was unwilling to switch to an ordinary war law profession, so he had to return to the blood cult. Hearing Wudi Zwijenlang's words, Li Huanhuan took out the pure blood believer badge that the Blood King had given her, which could open a portal to the Blood King City once. Blood King City, where exactly is this place? Li Huanhuan was getting a little excited. Anyway, the selection had been completed, so let's start now, she thought to herself, and immediately her mind moved, and the Pure Blood Believer badge in her hand emitted a dazzling light. The badge floated up from Li Huanhuan's hand, emitting a red light, and then a huge portal appeared in the center of the racecourse. There was an endless whirlpool in the bright red portal, as if there was an abyss behind it. The players looking at the portal were not afraid, but excited instead. They rushed into the portal one after another. Looking at the crazy crowd, Li Huanhuan was unable to stop them at all. As more and more people came in, the light of the portal gradually dimmed. Li Huanhuan and Dahe were both shocked when they saw this, and then followed the crowd and rushed in. The old dream of Blood King City. The Blood King on the throne opened his eyes. Lear had already entered the old dream of the Blood King City. As for the one who dealt with Maya in the Pope's Hall, it was his blood incarnation. Ino, Adele, the group of aliens are here, bring them here. The devil on the throne said softly. The two women who were cleaning the hall were startled when they heard the voice, and then showed an expression of understanding. Yes, master, the two girls agreed in unison. Call me Munger. In front of those aliens, I am the Blood King. The demon on the throne reminded. Yes, Lord Munger. The two women nodded, quickly changed their words, and then left the hall. Outside the Blood King City, 1,000 players were standing outside the city gate. The majestic city in front of them shocked them. This city looked more magnificent than the Soros King City, but most of the area was shrouded in fog. You have come to the old dream, the Blood King City. Introduction. The bloody dynasty of the past is buried in the dust of history, but the blood lives forever. Two prompts appeared in front of all the players, and the closed door in front slowly opened. Welcome, all the chosen ones. Ina walked out from the inside of the gate, wearing a black and white maid outfit and with a delicate appearance. She immediately attracted the attention of all the players. One player couldn't help but cast a reconnaissance spell. Name, Ina level, 45, intermediate, occupation, blood hunter favorability, normal danger level, highly fatal. The high level of 45 surprised all the players. Ino was wearing a maid outfit, which meant that she was a maid. A mid-level professional was actually just a maid? Lord Monge is waiting for you. Please follow us. Just as the players were looking at Ino, another voice appeared next to them. Adele stood on the other side, also looking like a maid, but unlike Ino's gentle attitude, Adele's expression was a little indifferent. Another maid appeared, equally beautiful, and many players cast their reconnaissance spells again. As soon as the information about Adele and the high-level blood hunter was exposed, there was a commotion among the crowd again. It's already outrageous for a mid-level professional to be a maid, but what about a high-level one? You must know that the war bishops of the war church are just high-level professionals. Adele turned a blind eye to the reactions of the players. She didn't want to repeat what she had already said once. She exchanged a glance with Ino, and the two girls turned around and walked towards the interior of the royal city. The players gathered at the city gate, followed behind, and entered the Blood King City. The buildings on the street gave people a sense of splendor, but most of the area was still shrouded in fog. Some players tried to enter the house, but they were given a cold prompt that they did not have permission, so they had to give up. When they entered the royal city completely, figures appeared in the buildings, and blood elves with pointed ears appeared in the players' eyes. Is this an elf? It's so pretty. Fuck, these guys are at least mid-level professionals? The crowd started to stir. Ino and Adele in the front felt that the players' behavior was a little strange, but they didn't say anything and just kept moving forward. After about 10 minutes, everyone arrived at the depths of the royal city, where the blood temple was located. A huge statue of Lillian stood in front of the temple, with bright red light radiating in all directions. The moment the players saw the statue, another prompt appeared in front of them: you are under the pressure of the Lord of Blood, all attributes decreased by 50%. In the blood temple, Lillian floated next to Lier and asked curiously, why do you want to leave pressure on my statue? Hearing Lillian's question, the demon on the throne chuckled and said, this is the Blood King City. Not just any weakling can come in. We must show the power of the blood cult, so that they will yearn for the cult. No one doesn't like to be powerful. Upon hearing this, Lillian nodded, agreeing with what Lier said. At this time, Ino and Adele had already led a group of players into the temple, walked through the long corridor, and came to the deepest gate. There were a full 1,000 players, filling the corridor, but it was still able to accommodate them. This was the number Lear had calculated. His throne room could only hold about 1,000 people without being crowded. This was Lear's first large-scale meeting with players, and perhaps the last. If you can reach an agreement with Dival to build the Blood Temple in Soros, then the player will change his job and accept tasks in the Blood Temple. The Blood King City is not a place where players can just come casually. The door slowly opened. Eno and Adele walked in first, and then stood on both sides of the door. This is Lear's throne room, and these players should follow appropriate etiquette when meeting the Blood King. You all go in one by one. This is Lord Mung's throne. No noise or disturbance is allowed. Anyone who causes disturbance will be expelled from the Blood King City. Adele said coldly. The players who were originally planning to squeeze in stopped their actions instantly after hearing Adele's scolding. From the time they entered the Blood King City until now, everything here foreshadowed the power of the Blood Cult. No one wanted to lose the opportunity to join the Blood Cult because of a small discourtesy. Li Huan and Dahe stood at the front of the team and led the way in. The players lined up and followed behind them. The throne hall was huge, with bright red crystal chandeliers on the huge pillars around it, and a long red carpet extending all the way to the deepest part of the hall. There are ferocious statues standing on both rows of the red carpet. Li Huan and Dahe walked slowly on the red carpet, and they felt like they were meeting the Emperor. This time, Li Huan's live broadcast room had exploded. Almost all players were interested in the Blood Cult. Soon, everyone finally reached the end of the red carpet. On the high throne, a bloody demon sat on the throne, and next to it was a hideous blood-red rose. On the blood demon's legs, a blonde girl put her arms around the demon's neck and leaned on the demon's chest. On both sides of the throne, there were several people and a ferocious giant wolf standing. A terrifying aura was overwhelming Shira, Irina, Red Wolf Amber and other blood elves looked at the players below as if they were looking at ants. Everyone present was a professional above the high level. Even Sheila and Irina had been promoted to extraordinary level with the help of the Dream Trial, including Amber and Lear. There are a total of 4 extraordinary professionals. Welcome, the chosen pure blood believers. After all the players entered the hall, Lear on the throne hugged Ophelia and said in a deep voice. Chapter 202 inches. The vast hall, the voice of the blood demon continued to echo. There was complete silence below, and even the barrage in Li Huan's live broadcast room decreased a lot. The demon sits on the throne, with magnificent statues of gods, blood elves, and giant wolves behind him. Everything here seems like a demon city that only exists in imagination. Li Huan, hello to the Blood King. Li Huan, who was standing at the front, was the first to kneel on one knee. Seeing this, Dai, who was standing by, hesitated for a few seconds and then knelt down like Li Huan. This scene shocked all the players present. This was just a game, and the people in front of them were just NPCs of the game. How could the players, as the immortal fourth calamity, kneel down? There was a commotion in the crowd, and the comments in Li Huan's live broadcast room kept rolling. Li Huan turned a blind eye to all of this. She just looked at the devil on the throne. When she saw the girl in the devil's arms, a hint of inexplicable jealousy flashed in her eyes. Everyone knew that she liked all kinds of bizarre things, but no one knew how extreme her hobby was. There is a special room in her home, which is filled with various character models from movies and games, and even life-to-one statues. When the game Law came out, she didn't pay much attention to it, but when she saw the blood apostles and the corrupted spirits, she was attracted. Compared to the bizarre and ugly corrupted spirit, the Blood King was hideous and majestic. Moreover, the NPCs in this game were smarter than she had imagined. Sometimes she even doubted whether this was a real world. Lear sat on the throne, a little surprised by Li Huan's behavior. As a former player, he knew how unruly the players were. Wanting them to surrender and kneel? Unless he offered a huge benefit, it would be impossible, but now he didn't even give Li Huan too many rewards, but she has already sworn allegiance. Could it be that he still has the charm of a ruler? Lear thought to himself. As Li Huan knelt on one knee to salute, 2 reactions emerged along the player group. Invincible Zue Junlang in the crowd also chose to kneel on one knee to show his loyalty. There were about 300 players who did the same as Invincible Zue Junlang. The remaining 700 players are still watching. Lord Mon, these people are the 1,000 aliens I selected for you who are willing to be loyal to the Blood Cult. Li Huan glanced at the players standing there by themselves and continued to report to Lier. Oh, thank you for your hard work. The demon on the throne nodded. He looked at the group of players kneeling down in front of him, then looked at the players who were still standing. He suddenly chuckled and said, "You said that these people are willing to be loyal to the Blood Cult?" But it seems that is not the case. Li Huanhuan was stunned when she heard Li Er's words, but she quickly understood what Li Er meant. The hundreds of players who were still standing must have made the Blood King unhappy. Lord Mong, please forgive the rudeness of my people. In our tribe, there is no mandatory etiquette of kneeling when swearing allegiance. Li Huanhuan tried to explain. But you knelt down, and they knelt down too. The devil waved his hand to interrupt Li Huanhuan's words. Looking at the group of players below, Li Er suddenly felt that these 1,000 people were too many. He had no plan to build the Blood Temple in Soros Royal City before, so he wanted more players to bring people to the Blood Royal City to facilitate the spread of the Blood Law, but now the plans have changed. Now Lear plans to turn the old dreamland of the Blood King City into a holy place for blood believers. Not everyone is qualified to enter. Originally, Lear prepared pure blood believer badges for these 1,000 players, which have the ability to teleport to the Blood King City once. It seems that he can save some money. Respected Lord Blood King, can I say a word? While Li Er and Li Huanhuan were talking, a player with the ID Watching the Moon in the Dark stepped out from the group of standing players. Who are you? Li Er set his gaze on the player in front of him. Looking at the moon in the dark, he had no impression of an unfamiliar ID, which meant that he had no sense of existence in his previous life. I am looking at the moon in the dark. He Deng King, you replied. What do you want to say? Lear asked. Lord Blood King, my people and I do not have the etiquette of kneeling when swearing allegiance, and I think that swearing allegiance does not require such etiquette. Haiding Kenyu said calmly, my lord, you want to spread the blood law, and you want elites. All of us, 1,000 people, have come here through strict selection, and all of us are elites. We hope to join the blood cult, but we also need to see the blood cult's sincerity. He continued, you and the blood cult are very powerful, but that is the power of the blood cult. What can we gain by coming here? Is the blood cult worthy of our loyalty? Haiding Kenyu said a lot in one breath. To sum it up, if you want us to swear allegiance, then you have to give us benefits. As Haiding Kenyu's voice fell, the entire throne hall fell into silence. The blood elves standing on both sides of the royal city showed angry expressions, and even Eno and Adele in the back frowned. The group of players who were standing seemed to agree with the idea of looking at the moon in the dark, and even some players who were kneeling on one knee stood up. In the end, there were only about 100 people left kneeling on the ground. The most handsome and invincible one is also among them. Boss, do we still have to kneel? The younger brother at the side looked at the players who stood up and felt a little moved. Don't move. Wudi Zue Junling said softly. Why? We got a system prompt when we came in, right? This is the former capital of the Blood Dynasty. Wudi Zue Junling said calmly. It's similar to our ancient dynasty. Just imagine, a group of powerless people joined the dynasty because they admired its power, but now they are asking for benefits and bargaining in front of the emperor. What will be their end? Having said this, Wudi Zue Junlang stopped talking. Looking at the black light in the moon, there was a hint of pity in his eyes. This man was obviously limited by the players' thinking. This is a game, not the real world. The Blood King is a hero-level NPC, on the same level as the Warpope, and is at the very top of the game. In a world like Law where the system is still in the feudal era, bargaining with an emperor is like an old man hanging himself because he thinks his life is too long. It is true that the Blood King wants to spread the blood law, but don't you see how many people want to join the blood cult? If you don't do it, there are plenty of people who will. Do you have the same idea? On the throne, the devil did not answer Haiding Kenyu's words, but turned his gaze to the other standing players. Feeling Lier's aura, the players felt uncomfortable but still stood. Seeing this scene, the devil's eyes turned cold. Amber, take them away from the royal city. Lier gave the order. Hearing Lier's words, Haiding Kenyu and a group of players who wanted to wait for a good price were all stunned. Lord Blood King. Haiding Kenyu was a little anxious. In his opinion, there were as many as 800 people on his side, so the Blood King would have to consider it. After all, the Blood King required 1,000 believers. Since you are still considering whether the blood cult is worthy of loyalty, then continue to consider it. Lier chuckled and shook his head. No, Lord Blood King, we are just. Hey Deng, can you wanted to say something else? You just want to gain benefits from me. Lier interrupted Hey Deng, can you directly? You aliens have come to this world, immortal, but you are just ordinary people. I allow you to join the blood cult. The professional power of the blood law is far stronger than the three major orthodox religions. This is the reward I give you, and it is also the reason why you are willing to come here. I understand you, the aliens. You pursue power, and I can make you powerful, but I hate greedy people. The demon on the throne spoke quietly, and the players who were about to leave fell silent. In fact, I don't care about the etiquette of kneeling down to pledge allegiance. Whether you are truly loyal to the blood cult or just pretending to be loyal to it, it makes no difference to me. Amber, take them away. Lier gave the order again, and this time his tone became much tougher. Those players who were hoping for some benefits in the hope of getting something out of it felt as uncomfortable as if they had eaten shit. Their eyes turned fierce when they looked at hating Kanua, especially those players who were originally kneeling but stood up because of hating Kanua's words. After hearing Lier's order, the red wolf lying under the throne stood up and walked towards the group of players. You should be grateful for Lord Monk's kindness. You dared to offend the blood law and should have been torn into pieces and thrown into the blood pool. The red wolf opened its bloody mouth and let out an angry roar. Those players who still had ulterior motives were frozen in place by this roar. The smell of blood and the terrifying murderous intent coming from the red wolf made everyone feel a chill on their backs. The scene was too real, as if there was a real ferocious and terrifying giant wolf that wanted to tear them to pieces. A player with good willpower cast a reconnaissance spell at the red wolf, and the commander level extraordinary creature template shocked all the players again. A wolf is actually a creature of extraordinary level. Under Amber's surveillance, even if they were unwilling, these players had to be driven out of the hall. When they came to the outside of the blood temple, a red light flashed, and everyone was driven out of the old dream. There were only about 100 people left in the hall. Lier looked at the players below. You are all smart people. I don't know what you think in your heart, but at least on the surface, you are willing to be loyal to the blood cult. I will reward you. As he spoke, a strange red light flashed in his eyes. The Blood King Munger invites you to join the blood cult. Do you accept? Note, once accepted, you will awaken your affinity for the blood law and will no longer be able to switch to other law professions, except for Li Huan and Dahe. System prompts popped up in front of all players. No one refused. After all, they came here for the profession of blood law. When all players had made their choices, a huge magic circle appeared in the center of the floor of the hall. You have received the gift of the Blood King. Your affinity for the awakened blood law will double. This time, even Li Huan and Dahe received system prompts. This was a small reward that Lier gave to these players. He planned to force the blood law affinity of the players who would awaken later to 1%. These players who were awakened by him personally were the last batch to awaken according to their own physical fitness. Everyone's values are different according to their own physical fitness and affinity for the awakening law, and on this basis, they are doubled. Suddenly, many people's affinity with the blood law increased to more than 10%, and they received attribute point rewards. The most exaggerated one is Li Huan. When Li Huan was awakened during the internal test, the opponent's initial full value was 20%. Now it has doubled to % blood law affinity. What the hell, a reward of 10 attribute points? Doesn't this mean that you have directly upgraded to level 10? There was a commotion among the players, and then it came to the profession selection. With only Blood Knight and Blood Hunter. Before long, everyone had chosen their career and completed their job change. Everyone had a smile on their face, and they were obviously satisfied with the professional skills of the Blood Knight and Blood Hunter. Although Li Huan had a fight with Nolan, he did not reveal the specific skill values. As for Dahe, he did not reveal the Blood Hunter's skills either. Therefore, the players here are not clear about the skills of Blood Knight and Blood Hunter, but now they know. Most of the people who come here have already studied the professions of the other three major sections. It is a fact that the profession of blood law is stronger than the professions of the three major sections. When the last person completed his job change, the light of the magic circle dissipated. Lier looked at the players below and waved his hand. More than 100 Pure Blood Believer badges flew in front of these players. This is the Pure Blood Believer badge as a reward for your loyalty to the blood cult, Lier said calmly. It's the same badge that Li Huan brought you here. This badge allows you to have the qualification to come to the Blood King City once, but only for one person. Qualifications to come to the Blood King City? The players looked at the badge in their hands, not realizing how precious it was. Lier did not explain. The players would know the answer after they went to the Blood Elf shop outside. The blacksmith shop has basic, intermediate, advanced, and even extraordinary weapons and equipment. There is also Sheila's pharmacy, which has all kinds of powerful potions, some of which even Lear has never heard of. Well, there are also skill source crystals. These things are enough to attract these players, and then they will know how precious this opportunity to teleport to the Blood King City is. Li set that these players' consumption in the Royal City can be redeemed by paying experience points, which is a one-time benefit. As for subsequent consumption, blood points will be needed. This will have to wait until Lear and Duval finish their negotiations and build the Blood Temple in Soros. From now on, points will be the hard currency of the Blood King City. They can only be obtained by completing tasks in the Blood Temple, or by exchanging them for increasing experience points. Lear will no longer reward the Pure Blood Believer badge casually in the future. This badge is a symbol of identity. Chapter 203, Weapons worth million blue star coins, a mountain of corpses and a sea of blood. Outside world, Soros Royal City. More than 700 players were expelled from the Blood King City, and there were still many players who were not selected at the horse farm, watching this scene with gloating. Hayden looked at Yu's gloomy face. He never expected that the Blood King would be so disrespectful. Damn, the Blood Knight and Blood Hunter are so strong. What are these potions? And this equipment? Extraordinary equipment is actually being sold at a clearly marked price? Cries of surprise rang out from the horse farm. The player who was expelled from the Blood King City had not yet figured out what was happening, so he immediately turned on the live broadcast and saw the situation inside the Blood King City. Juan was standing in the blacksmith shop at this time, looking at the equipment inside with great excitement. Blood Rock Great Sword, category, Great Sword, grade, intermediate, attack strength 20, features. This weapon is made of a special material called Blood Rock. When attacking, it can convert 1% of the damage into its own health requirements. Blood Law Affinity 15%, Mystic 10 exchange requirements, Blood Law Believer, 100 blood points, Reverse Stab, category, Dagger, grade, high level, attack strength 50, attack speed 10%, features, a dagger with a terrifying reverse blade. When attacking, it will cause bleeding effect to the target, and continuously damage the health value. Special skill, Reverse Stabbing Blood Blade, turning blood into a blood blade and releasing it, can be released continuously. Description, weapons held by Blood Elf nobles who serve the Blood King requirements, Blood Law Affinity 25%, Mystic 20 redemption requirements, Blood Law Believer, 1000 blood points, a mountain of corpses and a sea of blood, category, long sword, grade, extraordinary, attack strength 100, features, blood corrosion, killing countless lives has turned this long sword into a cursed blade. Each attack will weaken the target's defense capabilities. A special skill, corpses are everywhere, and the cursed blood is transformed into blades to form a cross-combo combat skill, ignoring all the target's defenses. Activating again can make more combos. Introduction, it has lost its former glory under the erosion of time, but it is still a cursed blade that has killed countless people. Requirements, Blood Law Affinity 35%, Mystic 40 redemption requirements, Blood Law Believer, 10,000 blood points. Intermediate, high level, and even extraordinary level weapons were placed directly on the weapon rack. Li Huanhuan couldn't believe what she was seeing. There were also a lot of players around Li Huanhuan drooling at the sight of these equipments. Well, Lord Blood Elf, can we buy all these weapons? Li Huanhuan couldn't help but ask. All the players present pricked up their ears as well, as this was what they wanted to know. Of course. The Blood Elf craftsman nodded. You are the believers chosen by the Blood King. As long as you can come to the Blood King City and have enough points, you can get weapons and equipment. After receiving the reply from the Blood Elf craftsman, all the players showed joy, but there is another very important point. How to obtain these points. Just as the players were scratching their heads, a system prompt appeared in front of everyone. Since you are pure-blooded believers recognized by the Blood King, you are eligible to exchange experience points for a limited time. Exchange rate, 1,000 experience points for 1 point. Points can be traded. Other ways to obtain points will be opened after the Blood Cult appears. Note, this is a gift from the Blood King. There is only 1 day to redeem it. Please carefully consider the redemption points. If you want to redeem, you can go to the Blood Temple to find the Blood Elf instructor Irina. Seeing this system prompt, all the players' eyes lit up. In order to change their jobs to the blood law profession, they had been doing tasks that would give them more experience points. Apart from the experience points they had just spent on the job change, everyone still had a lot of experience points. In the crowd, Woody Zuijolong immediately said, "Buy points at a high price, 1 point is 1,000 blue star coins." This shout stunned everyone. 1 point for 1,000 blue star coins? Doesn't that mean that 1 point of experience is worth $1? That's too generous. Every player present has tens of thousands of experience points, and some have even accumulated over 100,000, which is hundreds of thousands of dollars. Boss, do you really want to collect points? A player asked in disbelief. Hundreds of thousands is the income of an ordinary person for 2 or 3 years. Take them all. Woody Zuijolong waved his hand with a smug smile on his face. The feeling of being the center of attention is so great. As the ultimate second-generation rich in real life, he always gives it his all in any game, but the game of law is too torturous. There is no mall or recharge channel, and all equipment has to be obtained through fighting. How did a local tycoon like him adapt to this? He was forced to make money by scamming other people, which was also the inspiration for him when he was scammed by someone else in real life. After seeing the extraordinary weapon Mountain of Corpses and Sea of Blood, he was attracted to it. Such a powerful and cool-looking weapon should be worthy of a rich player like him. Do you want to exchange it for a Mountain of Corpses and a Sea of Blood? Li Huanuan looked at Woody's most handsome and proud look and guessed what he was thinking. That's right, Valkyrie, you can see that this weapon is placed here obviously to keep us hanging. We can only look but not eat it, but I must get this long sword today. Woody Zuijolong said firmly. For him, any problem that can be solved with money is not a problem. 10,000 points are only 10 million experience points, which is 10 million blue star coins, which is nothing to him. Li Huanuan's live broadcast room exploded because of Woody Zuijolong's words, and many viewers also calculated the price of exchanging this extraordinary long sword, which was 10 million blue star coins. 10 million for one piece of equipment. This is beyond the normal people's cognition. Even if you get this long sword, you can't use it, right? Li Huanuan glanced at the boiling live broadcast room and poured a basin of cold water on Woody Zuijolong. It's okay. I'll be able to use it someday. Woody Zuijolong didn't care. He had also studied the game world of law. Extraordinary level weapons were generally in the hands of extraordinary level strongmen. Even in the 3 major Orthodox religions, the number of extraordinary level equipment could be counted on one hand. When his conditions are met, he can pick up the weapons that only the Pope and High Priest can use, and then he will feel proud when he uses them. Li Huanuan shook her head. She had nothing to say about such a rich man. Under the temptation of money, many players gathered in front of Woody Zuijolong, and no one would miss the opportunity to make a lot of money. Li Huanuan went to other shops to have a look, especially the pharmacy. Li Huanuan was excited by the various powerful potions with permanent effects. There were many potions that increased attributes and health limits, but looking at the points required, she had to give up. Finally, after considering his own experience points, Li Huanuan decided to change to a Blood Rock Greatsword. It was an intermediate level weapon, more than enough for her as an apprentice. Her affinity for the Blood Law has reached 20% after being doubled by the Blood King's gift. With the attribute bonus of 20% affinity for the Blood Law, her mysterious attribute has also reached 10 points. Both points meet the conditions for using the Blood Rock Greatsword. The exchange points for the Blood Rock Greatsword are 100 points, which is equivalent to 100,000 experience points. Li Huanuan found the Blood Elf instructor in the Blood Temple, exchanged the points and got the weapon. Holding the Blood Rock Greatsword, Li Huanuan's eyes unconsciously fell on the reverse thorn on the weapon rack. Compared with the Blood Rock Greatsword, Li Huanuan liked the reverse thorn more in terms of appearance and attributes. Although she is a blood knight, it only makes sense for a powerful knight to carry a powerful short sword, right? In particular, the appearance of the NICI is like the fangs of a hideous and terrifying alien creature, which is very consistent with Li Huanuan's aesthetic taste. Looking at the NICI eagerly, Li Huanuan finally sighed. The price of 1,000 points equaling 1 million experience points is too high. Converted into the most handsome currency, it is 1 million blue star coins, too extravagant. She looked at Woody Zuijolong, who was constantly trading with the players. Most players only had enough experience points to exchange for some basic equipment. Although they were very powerful, how could they be exchanged for money? Therefore, almost all the players chose to exchange money with Woody Zuijolong. The opportunity of having such a rich and stupid person might not be there next time. There were only more than 9,923 players left, and in the end, Woody Zuijolong exchanged for 77 points, still short of the last points. His expression was a little heavy. Originally, there were 1,000 players, and the points were definitely enough, but that idiot called Hayden Canue was too smart for his own good and more than 800 of the 1,000 players were expelled, resulting in insufficient points. Now, Wu Zhujianlang was somewhat unwilling to accept this, and finally looked at Li Huanhuan, who was looking at him not far away. His eyes suddenly lit up. Li Huanhuan did not ask him to exchange points. Just when he was about to find Li Huanhuan to ask, he saw the big sword in Li Huanhuan's hand. "Valkyrie, have you exchanged your weapons?" asked Wu Zhujianlang with a grim expression. "Changed." Li Huanhuan nodded. "It cost 100 points." Hearing this, Wu Zhujianlang's face turned pale. 100 points. If Li Huanhuan hadn't changed, he would have accumulated 10,000 points by now. What's wrong? Haven't you collected all the points yet? How much are you short of? I still have 100,000 experience points here. Li Huanhuan asked curiously. How much? The originally disheartened Wu Zhujianlang's face turned red after hearing Li Huanhuan's words. 100,000, I want them all. Wu Zhujianlang shouted. Li Huanhuan was startled by Wu Zhujianlang. Lady Valkyrie, please sell it to me. I'm only 77 points short. Wu Zhujianlang suddenly hugged Li Huanhuan's thigh. Li Huanhuan showed a look of disgust, kicked Wu Zhujianlang away, and then said, "Don't pick on me, I won't sell it to you if you do that again." Finally, Li Huanhuan exchanged 77 points under the strange gaze of the Blood Elf instructor Irina and traded them to the invincible most handsome. Wu Zhujianlang did not hesitate and generously allocated 100,000 yuan to Li Huanhuan. After collecting 10,000 points, Wu Zhujianlang came to the blacksmith shop and directly exchanged it for a mountain of corpses and a sea of blood. As soon as the ferocious blood-red sword appeared, the terrifying murderous aura made the surrounding players feel a bone-chilling chill. Wu Zhujianlang was also shocked by the momentum of the long sword. He seemed to see an old man standing in the center among countless corpses. An old man sitting on a mountain of corpses. What kind of strong person could have such a strong murderous intent and integrated into the long sword? Is this really just an ordinary supernatural weapon? A hint of doubt arose in Wu Zhujianlang's heart. He stretched out his hand to touch the long sword, but a sharp sword energy emanated from it, cutting Woody's most handsome right hand, and blood flowed down. As if to say, "Control me? You don't deserve it." Feeling the slight pain coming from his right hand, Woody's most handsome face turned pale and blued. "I finally collected enough points, but now I can't even pick up the knife." Just when he was about to pick up the mountain of corpses and sea of blood by force, a figure slowly walked towards him not far away. The terrifying momentum instantly resonated with the sea of corpses and blood. The murderous aura swept out into the sky and slashed towards the figure. The players around were also directly blown away by the sudden appearance of the murderous aura. The mountain of corpses and sea of blood made a buzzing sound, and the murderous aura came directly in front of the figure. At this moment, an invisible ripple spread out, and the murderous aura disappeared in an instant. Everyone was shocked by this scene. Wu Zhujianlang looked at the figure, feeling a little overwhelmed. The Blood King actually showed up in person. Under the gaze of everyone, the Bloody King walked to the mountain of corpses and sea of blood and drew his sword. "I never thought you could convince everyone to give you all the points," the Blood King said calmly. Originally, this long sword was prepared for the most outstanding blood believers after the blood cult officially appeared in the world. Hearing the words of the Blood King, Wu Zhujianlang became a little anxious. Could it be that the Blood King was planning to take back the long sword? "Lord Blood King, don't worry, since you have exchanged this long sword, it is yours." The Blood King interrupted the words of Wu Zhujianlang. However, he continued, "This long sword is not something you can handle right now." Looking at the mountain of corpses and sea of blood in his hands, Lear's expression was heavy. This was the weapon he found in the Blood Elf's treasury. Under the erosion of time, most of the weapons in the treasury had lost their power, but this weapon, the mountain of corpses and sea of blood, had been preserved to this day and still possessed extraordinary power. When the Blood Dynasty existed, this long sword was at least a holy weapon. Originally, Lier planned to use the mountains of corpses and seas of blood as bait to maintain the players' enthusiasm for the blood cult, but he did not expect that this long sword was directly taken by Wu Zhujianlang with his money ability. He sighed and raised his sword. In this case, let this long sword make the most of its remaining power. Thinking in his mind, Lear directly launched the stun of a mountain of corpses and a sea of blood. Corpses everywhere, a terrifying blood-red aura extended from the blade, and Lear's figure danced in the empty space. The terrifying aura even distorted the space, and the faint shadow of a bloody ghost could be seen in the aura. After completing a set of moves, Lier stood up, turned his head and glanced at Wudi Zue Junlang. This is a land of corpses, a sea of blood and a mountain of corpses. As he said this, he inserted the mountain of corpses and sea of blood into the ground next to Wudi Zue Junlang. I have suppressed some of its murderous intent. I hope you won't disgrace this knife, he said, then turned and left, looking at the Blood King's departing back. Wudi Zue Junlang was silent for a long time, and finally drew his long sword. End of this chapter. Chapter 204. The speaker Pope and the Blood King Lier left in style, but the players present and the audience in the live broadcast room were all excited. The bloody knife shadow still echoed in their minds, as if countless dead souls were roaring and telling of pain. Outside the Blood King city, the players who were expelled had tears in their eyes when they saw this, not to mention the equipment. Even if he exchanged it with Wudi Zue Junlang for money, it would still be a huge income. Just because he listened to Hayden Kanyua's nonsense, he got nothing now. Destroying someone's wealth is like killing one's parents. Suddenly the atmosphere at the racecourse changed. Hayden Kanyua keenly sensed a hint of danger. He turned around suddenly and saw the expelled players rushing towards him. Before Hayden Kanyua could finish his words, he was greeted with punches and kicks. It's you who got us kicked out. Why don't you just die? If I don't beat you to death today, I'll take your last name. A gang fight broke out at the racecourse to vent anger, and Kanyua was directly suppressed by the crowd in the dark. There were also some players recording videos around, and everything related to the Blood King city was recorded by the players and uploaded to the official forum. In the Pope's Hall, Lier has returned from the old dream, and the incarnation of blood has been sent back to the old dream. After converting more than 100 players into blood believers, Lier clearly felt that he had some control over the players. Although it was very weak, it was better than nothing. The revival mission of spreading the blood law issued by Lillian was also completed, and some experience points were rewarded. Experience points are nothing to Lier now. As long as he wants, he can raise his level to the upper limit of the current game version in the Dream Trial dungeon in the Blood King city, but even so, his strength will not improve much. His various attribute points have far exceeded the level of a super-level professional, and he also has the Aslan Royal Swordsmanship. Even if the extra free attribute points are added, they cannot break the attribute limit of 100 points. Lier's eyes fell on his character panel. The tasks of breaking the limits of physical fitness and mysterious attributes had been triggered long ago. The first requirement was the same: to obtain the Realm of Saints. Just like blaspheming the true spirit, the extraordinary professionals who have obtained the Realm of Saints are called semi-saints. Only by attaining the Saint Realm can one's own attributes have the qualifications to break the limit by exceeding 100 points, but this is only a qualification. In previous lives, those who could break the limit at the Saint stage were geniuses among 10,000, and those who could break the limit at the epic stage were considered excellent. Looking at his exaggerated attributes, Lier's eyes became eager for some reason. Maybe he could try to break the limit in the extraordinary stage? Or even become a limit-breaking professional with 2 or even 3 attributes. As time passed, matters concerning cooperation among the 3 major religions progressed steadily. This kind of trivial matter was not something that extraordinary professionals like Alvin and Sylvia needed to worry about, but the people from the Golden Church and the Arcane Council tacitly did not leave the Soros royal city. The former was because Sylvia believed that her daughter was now in the royal city of Soros. Even though she was kidnapped by the Blood King, and even Milia said that Ophelia had changed her beliefs, but these were not what Sylvia cared about. She just wanted to see Ophelia again. As for Erwin and Maya, it was all because of Lier, and the Speaker of the Arcane Council also arrived in the royal city of Soros. Duval already knew that Speaker Lorena was going to visit the Church of War, and he solemnly arranged guards to welcome her. Special Executive Lier, His Holiness the Pope asked me to inform you that Her Excellency Lorena, Speaker of the Arcane Council, has arrived at the Pope's chamber. In the guest room, Lier heard a knock on the door. I understand. Lier took a sip of black tea and said lightly after receiving the reply. The believer outside the door hesitated for a few seconds. As the Speaker of the Arcane Council, Lorena is of the same status as Duval. As a special executive of the church, Lier should come forward to greet her out of courtesy. Although they didn't go directly to the city gate to greet him, he had already arrived at the Pope's hall. The believer shook his head helplessly and finally left. When the believers outside the door left, Lier in the room revealed an inexplicable smile. Outside the Soros Vatican, a luxurious carriage slowly drove to the door of the Vatican. Along the way, it was guarded by a large number of war believers, as well as a number of accompanying guard mages. Along the way, a large number of players and citizens of the royal city followed behind. The news that the Speaker of the Arcane Council visited the church spread in the royal city a few days ago. The residents of the royal city were unfamiliar with the Arcane Council. In their eyes, those flowery wizards were sissies and weaklings. However, they still have some awe for the Speaker of the Arcane Council. After all, he is of the same status as Duval. Your Excellency Speaker, we have arrived at the Pope's Hall. Outside the carriage, a high-level war knight said respectfully. Inside the carriage, a tall, beautiful woman closed the spellbook in her hand after hearing the voice. The door of the carriage was opened by the accompanying mage guard, and a long white leg stretched out from the carriage. The players who were watching this scene not far away all widened their eyes. When Lorena appeared in front of them, everyone was stunned. Even the high-ranking war knight beside him was stunned. The Speaker of the Arcane Council in front of him was actually half a head taller than him, at least 1.80 meters tall. Maybe even 1.90 meters. The war knight estimated Lorena's height in his mind, and inexplicably felt ashamed of himself. What's wrong? Looking at the hesitant war knight, Lorena said gently. This gentle voice fell on the war knight, and a feeling like an electric shock spread throughout his body. His face turned red, and then he said, "It's okay, Mr. Speaker, please follow me." The war knight said hurriedly, even making a gesture of invitation. Lorena nodded, but just as she was about to enter the Pope's hall, she suddenly stopped. The war knight looked at Lorena's long legs, a little confused, and looked up to find that Lorena was looking in another direction. Not only Lorena, but everyone present looked in the other direction. A demon in a gorgeous robe slowly walked over. With every step he took, the citizens and players around him consciously made way for him until the demon walked to the front of the convoy. Blood King, the war knight trembled as he spoke the name of the devil. He was involved in the night when the devil broke into the Pope's hall. As a high-ranking war knight who besieged the devil, he was subdued at the first sight. The feeling of blood boiling, suffocation, and approaching death is still deeply impressed in his mind. It's an honor to meet you, beautiful lady. Ignoring the gazes around him, the devil waved at Lorena, his words and actions extremely elegant. Are you, the Blood King? Lorina's expression looked a little strange. The top leaders of their three major sects were very concerned about the news about the Blood King, especially after he broke into the Soros Pope's hall. It is truly surprising that a pagan could escape unscathed from the encirclement of the War Pope and the three War Archons. This is just an insignificant title. My name is Monge. If Your Excellency the Speaker does not mind, you can call me by name directly. The devil replied with a faint smile. Lorena stared at the demon in front of her. His ferocious appearance was probably enough to scare a child to tears, but the demon's natural elegance was definitely not something that could be cultivated casually like an ancient demon noble. There was once such a race in the library of the council, but it was so long ago that it could not be verified. In that case, Mr. Mung, you are here not just to say hello to me, right? Lorena smiled after being silent for a few seconds. I am indeed not here just to say hello to the Speaker. The devil also smiled when he heard this. He looked at the war believers not far away in Dibel and others who had already arrived. The appearance of the Blood King was naturally not something that these high-level war knights could handle, so they had already informed Divel. As soon as Dibel appeared, he saw the devil in the crowd and was immediately furious. Damn heretic, how dare you show up? Your Holiness, are you going to fight me here? The devil looked at Dibel without even moving. Dibel calmed down. A large number of citizens and strangers gathered not far away. The residents of the royal city were influenced by the Church of War, and most of them were brave people. Unless their lives were in danger, they would probably not disperse on their own initiative. If the Blood King starts a war, these residents will suffer. What exactly do you want to do? Dibel asked through gritted teeth. I'm here to negotiate terms, Dibel, the demon said calmly. Conditions? Duval was stunned. The three major Orthodox religions plan to cooperate with each other to spread their faith to the aliens. I think this is great. The demon nodded. We, the blood cult, also want to join in. After hearing this, Duval began to doubt whether he had heard it wrongly. A believer of a pagan religion actually wanted to cooperate with the three major Orthodox religions. Even Lorena at the side showed a surprised expression, and her eyes looked at the devil strangely. Do you know what you are talking about? Dibel took a deep breath. Of course I know. I'm going to build a blood temple in Soros. The devil nodded and answered seriously. That's impossible. Duval refused without even thinking about it. It's bad enough that the Arcane Council and the Golden Church have established branches in Soros, but now a pagan wants to get a piece of the pie, not to mention himself. What would happen if the Golden Church found out? The Church of War and the Arcane Council are not responsible for eliminating heretics, but in the Golden Church, the trial of heretics is written into the Pope's doctrine. Don't be quick to refuse, Duval. This is beneficial to both parties. The devil was not angry because of Duval's refusal, but laughed instead. Both sides benefit? The war trial is about to begin, isn't it? A strange red light flashed in the demon's eyes. Do you want an ally who can help you, or an evil person who will disrupt the trial? When the three archons bring their elite troops into the trial ground, and you are the only one in the church, do you think you can stop me? The devil continued, with a threatening tone in his words. When Duval heard the words war trial, his expression changed. This is the trial for the war church to select the Pope and also the trial for suppressing the seals of the church. Even the Arcane Council and the Golden Church did not know much about this, but the heretics before them seemed to know the war trial very well. The trial will begin soon. At that time, all war believers at the beginner level and above will enter the trial site under the leadership of the three archons. At that time, only a few mid-level professionals will be left in the war church to maintain order in various church branches. Soros only has him as the only high-end fighter left. He is the Pope who cannot interfere with the Pope's trial selection and can only intervene when a crisis arises during the trial. If at that time, the Blood King commits evil deeds in Soros, how can he stop him alone? After all, he is just a human, not a god, and it is impossible for him to always be on guard against the disturbance caused by the Blood King. Or he could seek assistance from the Golden Church and the Arcane Council. With the help of these two orthodox religions, he could also restrict the Blood King during the war trial. Anyway, the duty of the Golden Church is to judge heretics. Duval thought to himself that he could not compromise with a pagan as it concerned the dignity of the Church of War. While Duval was thinking, Lear also rushed to the scene in the Pope's hall, as well as Sylvia. When Sylvia saw the Blood King, his expression became excited. She saw the Blood King with her own eyes, which means that Ophelia might really be in Soros. As for Lear, he just watched indifferently. Watching his avatar negotiate with Duval was also a novel experience. Looking at Duval's expression, he knew that the negotiation had failed. Lear had not intended to succeed in one go. When the war trial entered a critical moment, he could come to Duval again. In the previous life, the seal things almost broke out of the cage, and 4 extraordinary professionals of the Church of War died, including Rafar, Duval's younger brother. At that time, Duval had asked for help from the Arcane Council and the Golden Church, but was rejected. Lear didn't know the specific reason, but in the end it was the descent of the Goddess of War that solved everything. If Lear sneaked into the trial ground and rescued Duval and the identity of the Blood King when Duval was helpless, and then came back to negotiate with Duval might seriously consider it. After all, Duval would not want the Church's power to be lost in the trial ground, and he did not know that the Goddess of War would descend at the last moment, while Lear was still thinking about the future. Duval's expression suddenly changed inexplicably. His expression turned complicated as he looked at the Blood King. I need to have a good talk with you about this matter. If you have the courage, come in and talk to me. He said this, then turned around and left. This left the audience confused, especially Lear himself, who was simply stunned. He thought so much, but he didn't expect that Duval didn't directly reject his proposal. End of this chapter. Chapter 205, The Secret of the War Trial. Under the gaze of everyone, the Blood King walked into the Pope's hall step by step without any hesitation. Lear stood there and glanced at Duval's leaving back. The Blood King in front of him was just the incarnation of his blood, so naturally he would not have any fear. Lorena, who was standing by, had a strange expression on her face and followed the Blood King into the Pope's hall. As she walked past Lear, she paused, her eyes fell on Lear, and an expression of interest appeared on her face. Lear smiled politely at Lorena, then turned around and followed the steps of the Blood King and Duval. After the high-level officials walked away, the remaining mages and war believers finally reacted and hurriedly followed them. Pope's Hall, Round Table Hall. Duval, Lorena, the Blood King, the High Priest Sylvia of the Golden Church, as well as Lear and other extraordinary figures gathered together. The Blood King sat alone on one side, while the others sat on the other side. It seemed extremely absurd that the top leaders of the 3 major Orthodox religions actually sat together with a believer of a pagan religion. Duval glanced at the Blood King, who was sitting casually on the chair, his mind full of questions. Originally, he was not going to listen to the Blood King's conditions, but in the end, he heard an oracle from the goddess of war. Agree to the Blood King's request. Only this sentence. Duval couldn't understand why the goddess would be willing to cooperate with a heretic who had offended the church. Everyone had their own thoughts and no one spoke for a while, and the atmosphere in the hall became weird. Lear sat casually on the side with the 3 war archons. The speaker Lorena, High Priest Sylvia, could you please step aside for a moment? The Blood King and I have something to discuss. Duval spoke up to break the silence. No matter why the goddess of war wants to cooperate with the Blood King, this is the private matter of the Church of War and should not be known to the Arcane Council and the Golden Church. After hearing what Duval said, Lorena didn't have any thoughts. She nodded, stood up and left the hall. Sylvia was somewhat reluctant, her eyes fixed on the Blood King. She had finally met the Blood King, and she had not yet seen Ophelia. How could she leave? Feeling Sylvia's gaze, the Blood King turned his head, his bright red eyes, and looked over. Seeing Sylvia, he seemed to remember something, and he raised his hand. I remember you, you are Ophelia's mother. Where is Ophinia? Sylvia asked, the magic power of the golden law on his body overflowing uncontrollably. She? Of course she is doing well. The Blood King smiled. She is about to become the saint of my blood cult. After these words were spoken, not only Sylvia, but everyone present was stunned. Even Lorena, who was about to leave the hall, stopped. How dare you? Sylvia was a little angry. Although Milla had said that Ophinia's faith had changed, this was different from becoming a saint. In the Golden Church, the title of saint is given to those who are chosen by the goddess of golden law and are favored by the gods, but in other heretical sects, the meaning of the word saint is not exactly the same. In some heretical sects, the saint is the container for the descent of gods and a sacrifice. Especially those evil heretical sects, the so-called holy sons and holy daughters all ended up in a miserable way. Although the blood cult in front of us has not done anything evil, its belief in blood alone does not give people the impression that it is an upright sect. The Blood King saw through Sylvia's thoughts at a glance. He glanced at him and said, don't think too much. Our blood cult does not need a saint as a sacrifice, and the Lord of Blood is not one of those evil heretical gods. After hearing the Blood King's explanation, Sylvia obviously didn't quite believe it, but Lear had no intention of continuing to talk nonsense with Sylvia. The Blood King turned his gaze to Duval. Your Holiness, don't we have something important to discuss? High Priest Sylvia, please leave for a while. Duval looked at Sylvia. He didn't care whether she was a saint or not, but this is the Church of War, Ms. Sylvia. Duval's tone turned cold. After gritting her teeth, Sylvia finally walked out of the hall unwillingly, but she did not leave directly. Instead, she stood outside the door. After all the irrelevant people had left, Duval looked at the Blood King opposite him. Blood King, you can now talk about cooperation. Duval said in a deep voice, feeling inexplicably aggrieved, I will build a blood temple in Soros to spread the blood law to the aliens. Just like the Arcane Council and the Golden Church, it will only be open to aliens and will not affect the residents of Soros. The Blood King said lightly, then what can our war church get? Duval took a deep breath, you can gain an ally. The Blood King smiled, for your war trial, my blood cult followers can help you suppress the things in the seal. How much do you know about the war trial? Duval couldn't help but ask, I know everything. The Blood King raised his eyebrows. The sealed beast of extinction and the demon servants it bred, those things are all sealed in the old dreamland under the Pope's hall. Every once in a while, the seal will be eroded by the destructive breath of the beast of extinction, and the devil will be born. Therefore, the Church of War will conduct war trials to eliminate the devil and reseal the beast of extinction. The next war pope will also be selected in the trial. As the Blood King spoke, the expressions of Duval and the other 3 war archons changed a little. These were all the secrets of the church. Even those believers of the war church who participated in the elimination of demons did not know about the seal. They only knew that every once in a while the church would open a trial channel to another dimension, and they would select the pope by gaining merit by killing demons. I also know that killing those demon servants can quickly improve your strength, so you announced to the public that this was a war trial, with danger and opportunity coexisting, and those who survived will become stronger. The Blood King continued, you kept everyone in the dark, and in the name of a trial to improve strength, you called on all the war believers in the kingdom of Nox to attract them into the old dream to help you eliminate the demon servants. No one doubts you. The war trial is dangerous, but those who survive become stronger, so war believers flock to it. At this point, the Blood King's voice became low. What he said was an absolute secret. It was Duval who told him in person when Lear broke through to become a saint and left Nox in his previous life. At that time, he was an honorary elder of the church. Even the players at that time did not know these secrets. They only knew that the war trial was a limited-time reward copy, which was only accessible to professionals with the law of war. After Lear learned this secret, he would return to Soros when the subsequent war trial began to help Duval eliminate the demons and seal the beast of extinction. That monster is immortal and can only be sealed. Just like the player, the roundtable hall fell into deathly silence. The secret of the church was easily revealed by a heretic. Just like a stranger suddenly came and casually told you where the mole on your wife's body was, Duval stared at the Blood King in front of him. For a moment, he even suspected that there was a traitor among the church's high-ranking officials. Apart from the three Archon families, even the high-ranking war bishops outside were absolutely unaware of the war trial, so I think our cooperation should be a win-win situation. The Blood King seemed not to sense the changed atmosphere and said again, I will build the Blood Temple in Soros and will not interfere with the beliefs of the Church of War. At the same time, my blood believers will also help you eliminate the demons. At present, my blood cult has 3 extraordinary professionals beside me, and there are many high-level professionals. I think they should be able to help you. The Blood King spoke quietly, but the gazes of Duval and others fixed again. In addition to the Blood King in front of them, the Blood Sect actually has 3 extraordinary professionals. This is already the same combat power as the 3 major Orthodox religions. When did such a powerful heresy appear? Originally, when the Blood Apostle appeared in the royal city of Briefville, the 3 major sects had already paid attention to the Blood Sect, but now it seems that they still underestimated it. I can accept your request, but I will not allow people from your blood cult to enter the war trial. After a long silence, Duval finally made a decision that he did not trust the blood cult. Although the goddess of war had an oracle that would allow cooperation with the blood cult, matters regarding the trial of war could not be decided so hastily. No one knows whether the blood cult's knowledge of the war trial has some other conspiracy. Hearing this, the Blood King's expression did not change. He just chuckled and nodded, whatever you say. But the cooperation I mentioned is still valid. If you can't solve the problems in the trial, you can come to the Blood Temple to find me. Don't bother me, sir. Duval replied in a deep voice. The Blood King smiled and said, so our cooperation is concluded? I allow you to build the Blood Temple in Soros, but if your believers behave recklessly in Soros, I will expel them directly, said Duval. Of course, that's as it should be. The Blood King nodded. There is also the matter concerning the Golden Church. You are a believer of a pagan religion, and the Golden Church will definitely not ignore it. In the Soros royal city, I will not allow the Golden Church to fight with you. But once you leave the Soros royal city, what the Golden Church wants to do will no longer be my business. Duval added. I will handle the affairs of the Golden Church myself. Also, if you want to build a temple, you have to find the land issue yourself. The church will not provide land. I'll pay for a piece of land. I'm warning you one last time. I allow you to build the temple, but if you dare to harm the residents of Soros, the Church of War will do its utmost to destroy you. After much discussion between the two sides, the matter of building the temple was finalized. Lear sat aside and didn't say a word the whole time. He had never expected that it would be so smooth. It seemed that it wouldn't be long before the Blood Temple was built in Soros. This will attract a lot of players, which is what Lear needs to in this life. The Blood Cult is the first heretical sect to surface after the public beta. Later, more heretical sects will announce their appearance, and then the Golden Church will issue a large-scale task to wipe out heresy. This is the main quest of the game, and all players will participate in it. Players can choose to accept the mission of the Golden Church, or join the pagans to resist the Golden Church. By then, the Church of War and the Arcane Council will remain neutral and obey the actions of the Golden Church. By then, even if Lear builds the Temple of Blood in Soros, the Church of War will not be able to stop the Golden Church's cleansing. This is a game between gods, or a trial game of gods. Only the truly powerful pagans can survive and be qualified to travel to the wider world on the other side of the Decision Mountains. So Lear needs to build the temple as soon as possible and recruit players. In a magnificent palace, the goddess of war gazed into the deep void. In her sight was the scene of Duval negotiating with the Blood King. Croto, I admit that this mortal is excellent and is favored by the blood of the old ones and the morning star, but don't you think you are paying too much attention to him? The goddess of war turned her head and said to the black-haired girl beside her. Just consider it as I owe you a favor. The girl named Crodo said with a smile. Crodo, tell me, what is your relationship with this mortal? You reincarnated him into this world and took care of him in every way. The goddess of war looked at Crodo suspiciously and asked. I just have high hopes for him. You also said that he is very good. Crodo did not directly answer the question of the goddess of war, but just said perfunctorily. As she spoke, she seemed to have thought of something, and gave the goddess of war an apologetic look. Sorry, I need to go find Gold, and say hello to Gold. Gold? The goddess of war was stunned for a moment, then seemed to understand something. She smiled helplessly and said, You really should go and say hello to that woman of gold. This mortal is planning to turn the saint of gold into a believer of blood. He is really bold. Well, see you later. Crodo smiled slightly, nodded to the goddess of war, and disappeared on the spot. Only after Crodo disappeared did the war goddess's gaze become profound. Crodo, the deity in charge of the law of death, has no temple, no faith, and no believers, but her strength is the best among all the gods. No one knows where she came from, or whether she existed even before the woman of the golden rule became a deity. So, all the gods respect her very much. Is the person she favors really just a simple mortal? The goddess of war fell into deep thought at the end of this chapter. Chapter 206, construction of the blood temple begins and the meeting with Lelina. After the meeting, the Blood King turned around and left the hall. Lear sat in his seat and said nothing from beginning to end. Dival looked at the Blood King's departing back and sighed helplessly. He always felt that agreeing to the other party's request would cause a lot of trouble, and he didn't know what the goddess of war was thinking. Outside the hall, the Blood King pushed open the door. Sylvia and Lorena had not left yet. Not only that, other guards from the Golden Church also rushed over, as well as Erwin, Maya, and others. Seeing the Blood King swaggering out, all the people in the Golden Church became alert, and some even took out their weapons. Where is Ophinia? Sylvia raised the scepter in his hand. She thought a lot while she was outside. She was the high priest of the Golden Church. How could she ignore a heretic who kidnapped her daughter and appeared in front of her in a swagger? Judging heretics is her duty, even if it means fighting between the Church of War and the Blood King. It is justified. Looking at the aggressive people of the Golden Church, the Blood King, who was surrounded in the middle, had a blank expression on his face. He turned his head to look at Dival in the hall. Your Holiness, we just reached a cooperation, and someone wants to attack me in the Pope's hall. Don't you care? Dival, who was discussing something with the three consuls, was startled when he heard the voice, then looked up outside the hall. Seeing the tense situation between the two sides, his expression changed. High Priest Sylvia, what do you want to do? Dival stood up and walked to the door. Your Holiness, is it true that the Church of War has reached a cooperation with this heretic? Sylvia did not answer Dival's question, but asked back in disbelief. This is a private matter of the Church of War and has nothing to do with you. Duval's tone turned cold. He is a heretic, Sylvia said angrily. We in the Church of War have never been hostile to heretics, Duval said calmly. The trial of heretics was just the behavior of old man Ulysses himself. Sylvia was stunned by what he said. Duval called the Golden Pope by his name, but she could not refute it. The trial of heretics was indeed just the Pope's doctrine of the Golden Church. If everything is fine, I'll leave. The construction of the temple still needs some planning. Looking at the two people who were stuck in a stalemate, the Blood King obviously didn't want to waste any more time. You can't leave. Sylvia reacted and tried to stop him, but a terrifying aura instantly erupted from the Blood King. The suppression of the heroic class immediately made Sylvia feel a strong sense of oppression. A strong bloodlight flashed in the eyes of the Blood King, and an unspeakable feeling of suffocation gradually emerged in the hearts of all the believers of the Golden Church. Lorena, who was standing by, was startled when she felt this momentum. Hero class. The king of the blood cult before them was actually of the same heroic class as the rulers of their three major Orthodox religions. After feeling the aura of the Blood King, Duval's eyes became deep. He had fought with the Blood King before, and it was precisely because he knew that the Blood King was a hero that he was so afraid of the Blood King. If a real fight breaks out, he is the only one in the entire War Church who can compete with the Blood King. The terrifying aura flashed by, and when the golden believers around them felt that they were going to die in the next second, the aura disappeared. The Blood King smiled, as if everything that happened just now was just an illusion. He looked at Sylvia and said, "You will be able to see your daughter soon, when the blood temple is built. She will become a believer in blood, abandoning gold and throwing herself into the arms of blood. I welcome you to come and watch the ceremony," he said softly. After saying the last sentence, the Blood King's body gradually blurred and dissipated like mist in front of everyone's eyes. Looking at the disappearing Blood King, Sylvia's expression was a little distorted. Duval glanced at the high priest. He understood Sylvia's feelings. In his opinion, the Blood King and even the blood cult were definitely not upright. When everyone fell silent, Lear left the hall directly from another door. No one knew what exactly happened in the Pope's chamber, but the news that the Blood King and the Speaker of the Arcane Council entered the Pope's chamber together soon spread throughout the entire Soros Royal City. On the game's official forum, Soros Royal City has become the focus of all players. The heat slowed slightly after the three major denominations announced that they would establish branches of the other two major denominations within their own denominations. 3 days later, a notice was posted in the Soros Vatican and even in the areas controlled by the other two major sects. It was about the three major sects establishing branches with each other, but the announcement from Soros Royal City was slightly different, as it also included the blood sect. A pagan was actually allowed to build a temple in the royal city of Soros, the headquarters of the Church of War. At first, some people thought it was a rumor, but when a huge blood-red portal rose up at the horse farm in the western suburbs of Soros Royal City, everyone had no choice but to believe it. At the western suburbs horse farm, a huge blood-red portal stood, with a ferocious giant wolf lying beside the portal. The debris around it had been cleared away, leaving a vast piece of land. A large number of blood elves constantly entered and exited the portal, moving out special blood rocks from the old dreamland of the Blood King city from the inside. These were the materials for building the temple. Outside the horse farm, a large number of people gathered together and watched the blood elves build the temple. Lear also stood among them. Now, 5 days have passed since the negotiation with Duval, and he has begun to build the temple. He bought this horse farm with his own money, and it was also the place where Li Huanhuan conducted personnel selection before. The horse farm is spacious and has enough space to build a temple. Although it is located on the outskirts of Soros, Lear is confident that he can turn it into a prosperous area. Are those people the followers of the blood cult? Avian said curiously in the crowd, "I thought the Blood King was so scary, and his followers should be scary too." Hearing Avian's words, Lier's mouth twitched slightly. "Ivan, the Blood King's appearance is just a disguise," Arcane Council Speaker Lorena said with a smile. "Disguise?" Avian was stunned. "Yes, you can't sense it yet. The image of the devil is probably just a mask disguise, a prop used to hide the identity." Lelina explained. Hearing Lorena's words, Lear turned his head with slight surprise. The Speaker of the Arcane Council could actually tell that the image of the devil was just a mask. You should know that the blood prisoner mask has almost no flaws. Once worn, it will hide all information. It does not look like an ordinary mask, but like a real demon's head. Feeling the gaze, Lelina looked up at Lyre, with a slightly strange look in her eyes. Since the negotiation between the Blood King and Duval, she had wanted to talk to Lyre several times, but was rejected by Lyre with reasons such as seclusion and studying magic. It wasn't until today when she ran into Lear going out to explore the blood cult's portal that she followed him. "Special Executive Lear, you are no longer in seclusion now, so you should have time to talk to me," Lorena said with a hint of complaint in her words. Lyre raised his eyebrows when he heard this. He had been dealing with the establishment of the Blood Temple these days, so he had not negotiated with Lorena. Now he had time. "Then let's do it tomorrow." Lear nodded. "Our matter of Mina and arcane counterattack." After receiving the reply, Lelina smiled and said seriously, "Special Executive Officer Lear will not stand me up, right?" "Of course not. I always keep my promises." Lear chuckled. While the two were talking, a group of players with IDs on their heads ran over from the crowd. Seeing the huge portal in front of them, all the players showed excitement. Under the gaze of everyone, a group of more than 100 players directly entered the restricted area set up by the blood cult. Seeing this scene, many onlookers showed expressions of gloating. When the blood cult's portal appeared, some players wanted to break in to take a look, but they were all expelled. Some stubborn players were even beaten to death by the Red Wolves. Only later did they restrain themselves a lot. The Red Wolves also set up a restricted area line at the horse farm, and now there are people who are not afraid of death again. but unexpectedly, Red Wolf did not attack these players. After talking with them for a while, the players dispersed and began to help build the temple. Damn it! Why don't we attack them? A player who was killed by the Red Wolf cursed in anger. Don't you see who they are? They are the ones who have joined the blood cult. Isn't it their duty to help with the quest? Said an informed player enviously. Lier looked at this scene and nodded silently. With the help of these players and the blood elf professionals, the temple should be built within a month. Although most of the players should have changed their professions by that time, players who changed to the Orthodox profession would be eligible to switch to the pagan profession for free once. He has already spread the word that once the blood temple is completed, the job transfer to the blood law profession will be made public. The strength of the blood law profession has spread throughout the entire game forum in recent days. Whether it is the blood hunter or the blood knight, they always have the upper hand when fighting against other professions of the war. Lier believes that by then a large number of players will choose to change their careers. Just as Lear was thinking, he suddenly felt a powerful force coming from not far away. Sylvia came over with a group of golden church guards. When he saw the portal that exuded a terrifying aura, his face looked extremely ugly. Your Excellency the High Priest, this group of heretics actually dared to build a temple so blatantly. Mori said angrily. The other golden believers around were also angry. The doctrine of judging heretics had been integrated into their souls. What the blood cult did was a challenge to the majesty of the Golden Church. Sir, we must destroy this portal. We can't let these heretics continue to run rampant. Mori was filled with righteous indignation. Shut your mouth. Sylvia shouted coldly. After these few days, she has calmed down. This is Soros, the headquarters of the Church of War. The establishment of the temple by the blood cult was tacitly approved by the War Pope, and the War Church might prevent the blood cult from being attacked. She turned her head to look at Lear and Lorena in the crowd and took a deep breath. Not only that, the giant wolf lying in front of the portal had raised its head, and its scarlet eyes were staring at her. Sylvia could feel the threat. The giant wolf in front of her was a creature of extraordinary level and very powerful. It looked at her as if it was looking at a prey. Going up now would be seeking death. First report the situation here to His Holiness the Pope. The affairs of the blood cult need to be decided by His Holiness the Pope. Finally, Sylvia sighed. The things here were indeed no longer something she could handle. The next day, as soon as Lear went out, he saw Maya and Ivian guarding the door. Special Executive Officer Lear, Mother has already arranged a banquet. Please follow me. Maya did not give Lear a chance to speak. She stared at him straightly. Special Executive Officer Lear said yesterday that he would talk to Mother. He should not break his promise, right? Of course not. Then I'll trouble Princess Maya to lead the way. Lear raised his eyebrows. Hearing this, Maya smiled, turned around and walked outside with Lear. Lorena arranged a banquet at Soros' famous restaurant. Lear was a little surprised. He thought he was just going to find a conference room to talk, but he didn't expect Lorena to host a banquet for him. Something is wrong. Lear thought to himself and followed Maya and the other girl to the private room. Inside the private room, Lorena and Erwin had been waiting for a long time. Seeing Lear appear, Erwin stood up and greeted him. Lear. Lear glanced at the dishes on the table and greeted them with a smile. Master Erwin, Speaker Lorena. Please take a seat, Special Executive Officer Lear. Lorena also spoke. Lier didn't hesitate and sat down opposite the two of them, while Maya and Ivian sat next to him. Special Executive Lear, I'm here to talk to you today mainly about Mina and the spell Arcane Counter. Lelina said straight to the point. Could you please cast Arcane Counter so I can feel it? Of course. Lear nodded and waved his hand, and a lavender halo spread in the private room. Feeling the invisible fluctuations, a strange light flashed in Lorena's eyes, and the magic power of Arcane gathered on her body, but disappeared in an instant. Her expression became solemn. In the letter, Erwin had said that Arcane Counterattack was very powerful, but now after experiencing it personally, she realized that this spell was even more terrifying than she had imagined. Arcane Counterspell has no grade. As the user's power increases, it can counter more advanced spells. If it is a civil war between mages, it's not a big deal. At most, you can just practice more close combat in the future. But now it is Lear who has mastered this spell. A dual law professional of war and arcane. This means that any professional of the same level in the arcane law will become a chicken or a dog in front of Lear, including herself. End of this chapter. Chapter 207 continued. The olive branch from the Arcane Council and the treatment of Mina. The arcane counter effect did not last long, and the lavender halo around Lear quickly dissipated. Lelina reacted and took a deep breath. Special Executive Officer Lear, is this spell really a spell of no grade? Yes, Mr. Speaker. Lear nodded. After receiving the reply, Lelina fell silent. The entire box was silent. After a long while, she spoke up. I wonder if Special Executive Officer Lear is interested in joining the Arcane Council. Staring at Lear with burning eyes, this was the best solution Lelina could think of. The power of the spell Arcane Counter is too terrifying, but fortunately it is a mage spell and only practitioners of arcane law can learn it, so under normal circumstances it will not have much impact on the Arcane Council. But the young man in front of him was not in an abnormal situation. As the Special Executive of the Church of War, Lear possesses the power of war and the power of arcane. This means that if Lear wants to become hostile to the Arcane Council, it will be difficult for the entire Arcane Council to pose a threat to Lear. The solution Lelina thought of was to bring Lear into the Arcane Council. After all, Lear also possessed the power of arcane law, so it was reasonable to tell others about it. You want me to join the Arcane Council? Hearing Lelina's words, Lear raised his head. He certainly knew what Lelina wanted to do. Joining the Arcane Council was certainly possible, but the important thing was what he could get. Yes, as long as Special Executive Lear joins the Parliament, I can declare you the 7th member of the Parliament, with all the powers of a member of the Parliament, and all spellbooks below the extraordinary level in the Parliament will be open to you. Lelina stated her bargaining chip. Only spellbooks below Transcendent? I'm sorry, but even members of Parliament need to make a contribution before they can borrow spellbooks above the extraordinary level. The same goes for other members of Parliament, but each member is eligible to borrow 3 extraordinary spellbooks for free. Lelina explained. If I choose to join the Parliament, do I have to hand in the arcane countermeasures? Lear suddenly asked. The Parliament will not force you to hand in your spells, but if Special Executive Lear is willing to hand them in, the Parliament will reward you generously, and these rewards are in addition to your parliamentary rights. Lelina replied with a smile. Lear nodded. Lelina was a smart person, and her meaning was to invite Lear to join the Parliament and become a member of Parliament. She gave Lear 3 extraordinary spells for free, and the right to view other spell books below the extraordinary level. As for the spell of Arcane Counter, Lelina did not force Lear to hand it over. Lear appreciated this way of handling things, as it did not have the condescending feeling of the Golden Church. However, Lear did not believe that Lelina would really give him so many benefits for free. Mr. Speaker, you invited me to join the Parliament and gave me so many conveniences. Don't you have any requirements? Lear asked with a smile. Special Executive Lear, I have seen the spells you created, whether it is Arcane Cannon, Extinguishment or Arcane Counterattack. They are absolutely excellent spells. You are fully qualified to be a member of the Parliament. Lelina answered righteously. The Arcane Council has never been stingy with geniuses, but the spellbooks promised to you can only be fulfilled after you actually become a member of the Council. She continued, with a sly look in her eyes. Then how can I really become a member of Parliament? Lear asked. To become a member of the Parliament, you must declare yourself under the statue of the goddess. As long as Special Executive Lear returns to Kalia with me, I will hold a ceremony for you to become a member of the Parliament. After that, the Parliament's spellbook will be open to you. Lelina said with a smile. This is her purpose. She promised to make Lear a counselor, but asked him to follow her to Kalia. She wanted to tie Lear to the chariot of the Arcane Council. These days, she also learned about Lear's situation from Erwin and Maya. As a dual law professional, when Lear's arcane law also reaches the extraordinary level, his strength will definitely be terrifying. Such people are worth winning over. As long as Lear is brought to Kalia, Lelina is confident that she can keep Lear. Lear's original profession was a wizard, but later he seemed to have received the gift of the goddess of war and gained the power of the laws of war. This shows that Lear must be more inclined to arcane, otherwise he would not have chosen the mage profession in the first place. The reason why he asked Maya to teach him spells must be because Lear loved the arcane, and also because he wanted Maya's spells. It was the Goddess of War who forcibly took Lear to the Church of War, Lelina thought to herself, even though it was a bit blasphemous, this was the only reason she could think of. Your Excellency the Speaker, do you want me to go to Kalia? Lear looked at Lelina and understood, sure enough, the spellbook is not that easy to get. Yes, but the parliamentary ceremony must be held under the statue of the goddess. This has always been the rule of the parliament. Lorina's delicate face showed a little helplessness. Then I'm afraid I won't be able to become a member of parliament for the time being. Lear shook his head. The war trial was about to begin, and the blood temple was also built in Soros. He couldn't leave now. Does Special Executive Lear mean that he is willing to become a member of parliament? Lorina's eyes lit up. Of course, how can I refuse the invitation from the speaker? It's just that I can't leave Soros for the time being. Lear nodded. Lear was not opposed to just going to Kalia. He could also understand Lorina's idea, which was nothing more than winning him over. Lear thought it was a good deal to go to Kalia and gain the status and power of a member of the Arcane Parliament. If we can have the support of the Church of War and the Arcane Council, even if the affairs of the Blood Cult are exposed in the future, we can drag the Church of War and the Arcane Council into the water. Lear had evil thoughts in his mind. Lorina knew nothing about this and was just trying to win over Lear. In that case, I will wait for Senator Lear to arrive in Kalia. Well, there is one more thing, about Mina. After talking about Lear joining the parliament, Lorina mentioned Mina. Mina is my daughter. I'm sorry that she offended you. I can make compensation for this. Can you ask Special Execution Officer Lear to release Mina? She said apologetically. I'm willing to give you an extraordinary spellbook in exchange. This was a very sincere exchange, as even members of parliament could only get 3 supernatural spellbooks for free, but Lear shook his head. I'm sorry, Mr. Speaker, I can't hand Princess Mina over to you for the time being. Hearing Lear's words, Lelina's eyebrows drooped. Senator Lear wants the spells in Mina's forbidden arcane book? She had heard from Erwin that Erwin and Maya had negotiated with Lear before, but Lear remained indifferent. I heard that the two had some interactions before Mina attacked Lear. Is it the forbidden spell that Lear wanted from Mina? The arcane book had been handed down from Lelina's father for a long time. The book of arcane that explored the soul was a taboo. Her father had spent all his energy to create the arcane, but in the end he sealed the arcane in the book, leaving behind the words, "The soul is a taboo that mortals cannot touch." From then on, Lelina sealed up the arcane book until it was stolen by Mina. This is the secret of the Arcane Council. How did the young man in front of him know Mina's whereabouts, and how did he know the forbidden arcane book? Lorina stared at Lear for a long time, but Lear just smiled and said nothing. She sighed and took a last look at the pendant between her chest. 2 lavender gems emit brilliant light. This is a relic of law, containing a trace of the soul power of Mina and Maya. The conditions of Maya and Mina can be known through the light of the gem. Mina's soul light remained calm, so Lelina knew that Mina was not in danger of death. That arcane book was left by my father. He created the forbidden arcane and then sealed it away. After a moment's silence, Lorina suddenly started talking to herself. My father didn't want the arcane in the book to spread out, so he sealed it. But Mina was very rebellious and stole the book after listening to me. She wanted to remove the seal. Originally, I wanted to find Mina and bring her back to put her in solitary confinement. Since Senator Lear is also interested in that spell, I can let you and Mina study the arcane book together. Lorina said dimly, and she attributed the reason why Lear took Mina away to the fact that Lear wanted to study the arcane book with Mina. In her opinion, since Lear could create a series of powerful spells such as arcane counter, he must have a genius in arcane talent, which is why he is interested in the arcane book. Maybe Mina was kept here because she had been studying that arcane book for a long time? Lear listened to Lorina's words. He didn't know what Lorina was thinking, but he always felt that she had misunderstood something. I can let you and Mina study the arcane book together, but I have conditions. Lelina continued. You must treat Mina well while she is with you, and if you have not been able to lift the ban after more than half a year, you will need to be responsible for Mina. Responsible? Lear was stunned. Mina is my daughter, and more importantly, the Princess of Kalia. You have hidden my daughter for half a year. What do you think people outside will think? Will she be able to get married in the future? Lorena said firmly. The private room suddenly fell silent because of Lorena's words. Not only Lear, but also Maya and others beside him were silent. Lear never expected that Speaker Lorena would make such a decision to marry Mina to him. Mr. Speaker, isn't this a bit? Lear wanted to refuse, but what he got was Lorena's serious look. You want to refuse? Then let Mina go now. Lorena said coldly, I know that although Mina attacked you, it was you who threatened Mina first. You wanted the spell, so you threatened Mina. If you hadn't threatened Mina, Mina wouldn't have attacked you. Even if Dival is here, I am still right. If you want to imprison Mina for your own selfish desires, I think Dival will help me. Either you agree to my request, or let Mina go. Lorena spoke a lot like a string of cannonballs, and Lear broke out in a cold sweat. He had mentioned his threat to Mina when Mina had set up a magic circle to attack him. He originally thought that no one noticed, but now that he had been discovered, the situation had changed. There was no reason to keep Mina imprisoned any longer. Maya on the side was also stunned after hearing what her mother said. When describing Mina's attack on Lear, she also mentioned the threat, but she didn't think too much about it at the time. She just thought that it was her sister who attacked Lear. Now it seems that Lear is in the wrong. After a long silence, Lear raised his head and pretended to be innocent and said, Mr. Speaker, what are you talking about? I didn't threaten Princess Mina, but since it is your request, then I will naturally agree to it. In the end, Lear chose to agree. In his opinion, the spell of resurrection was more important than the extraordinary spells of the Parliament, and Lorena gave him half a year. In other words, as long as Menaga works hard to develop the spell within half a year, he will not be responsible. If he finds time to tell Mina the news, the princess probably won't want to marry him and will study magic even harder. Lear thought to himself that he always felt that he had some potential to be a scumbag. You agreed? Lorena thought she would have to persuade Lear, but she didn't expect that Lear would agree directly. I accept, but I think it should take less than half a year to analyze a spell. Lear smiled. Lorena also understood what Lear meant. If she could analyze the spell within half a year, she would not be held responsible. You are very confident? Lorena chuckled. Has Senator Lear read the arcane book? Not yet. Lear shook his head. He couldn't understand it at all. I once studied that arcane book and spent nearly 10 years without being able to parse the spells. Lorena said calmly. It has only been 5 years since Mina stole the arcane book. Lear listened to Lorena's words and smiled. He understood what the other party meant. As the Speaker of the Arcane Council, how could Mina possibly complete the research that had not been completed in 10 years? Even if we add another half a year, it would still be impossible, but Lear was confident. When Mina in his previous life appeared, she had obviously figured out the spell. At that time, the game had been launched for less than half a year. Mr. Speaker, perhaps you don't know your daughter very well. Lear replied with a chuckle, Your daughter is a genius, a true genius. Just like what was said in the introduction to that arcane book, only a true arcane genius could decipher the spells contained therein. Lear's confident tone made Lorena inexplicably nervous. Could they really analyze the spell in half a year? Lorena didn't know, and Lear didn't say anything else. After that, Lear left. After Lear left, Maya threw herself into her mother's arms and said with a complicated look, Mother, are you really going to marry my sister to Lear? Lear has held Mina captive for so long, he should be responsible for her. Lorena nodded, thinking about Lear's attitude just now, and did not notice Maya's conflicted emotions. End of this chapter. Chapter 208, Emperor Rhodes and the heretical sects lurking in various countries. Lear didn't care much about Lorena's request. Half a year was enough. He believed in Mina's talent, or rather, in her memories of her previous life. After that, Lear had a lot of free time. The Blood Temple was being built in an orderly manner. During this period, Dival also brought people from the Church of War to see it. After seeing the giant wolf and a large number of powerful blood elves, he was very melancholy. But you can't go back on what you've already promised. Among the player community, more and more people are rushing towards Soros. Most of them are coming for the Blood Temple. This is all thanks to Li Huanhuan. Lear's blood incarnation told Li Huanhuan the reason for building the Blood Temple, which was to spread faith among the alien community. The blood law profession will be fully open to players. but the requirements for changing jobs have doubled compared to the initial 100 plus people, and a new way to change jobs with gold coins has also been added. Li Huan released all this information, which naturally attracted a large number of players who were pursuing power. At the same time, in addition to the Blood sect, some other heretical sects are also emerging in various kingdoms. Rhodes Empire, Imperial Palace. Emperor Rhodes laughed as he looked at the information in his hand. Ulysses, did you see that? This blood cult doesn't take you seriously at all. He wants to openly build a temple in Soros to spread the faith, and even wants to change Ophelia's faith. The casual smile echoed throughout the hall, and the soldiers guarding not far away looked at each other when they heard the sound. Under the throne, an old man in a gold-rimmed robe looked grim after hearing Emperor Rhodes' laughter. He snorted coldly, "Humph! They are just a bunch of heretics who don't know how to live or die." "Really? I heard that even Dival compromised with the Blood King and allowed him to build a temple in Soros. Even we were qualified to build the Golden Cathedral in Soros because of the oracles of the three goddesses." Emperor Rhodes restrained his smile and spoke while looking at the letter in his hand. His words revealed his interest in the Blood King. "Your Majesty, we are all believers of gold. The other party is challenging the majesty of gold. You shouldn't laugh at the Holy See." The old man finally couldn't help it and retorted to Emperor Rhodes. "Ulysses, you are right. We are all believers of gold, but I will not recognize your golden church." Emperor Rhodes' tone became cold. "You arbitrarily tampered with the teachings of the goddess and turned the golden church into what it is today. I remember that the goddess has not responded to your prayers for a long time. Enough. Gross, everything I do is for gold, so now the golden church is above the war church and the arcane council." As if a sore spot was touched, the golden pope directly said the name of Emperor Rhodes. The hall fell into silence. Emperor Rhodes, sitting on the throne, looked at the golden pope indifferently. "Then you have to solve the matter of the Blood King by yourself. The Empire will not help you." "I don't need the Empire's help. A mere pagan believer can be annihilated with a wave of my hand," said the golden pope angrily. Emperor Rhodes shook his head and said nothing more. The golden pope turned around and left the hall directly. Only after the golden pope left did Emperor Rhodes reveal a disdainful expression. "The teachings of the goddess are to treat all living beings fairly, whether they are heretics or believers of gold. Gold is inclusive and never arbitrary," he said to himself. After the golden pope left, the knights who had been waiting outside the hall walked into the hall and half-knelt respectfully before Emperor Rhodes. "His Majesty. Is there a problem?" "Traces of a heretical sect have appeared in the imperial capital," the knight whispered. "A heretical sect?" Emperor Rhodes showed a surprised expression. "This is the imperial capital of the Rhodes Empire and the headquarters of the Golden Church. No heretic sect would dare to come here." "Yes, Your Majesty, there is a magical rhythm of red lightning in the west of the city. It does not belong to the three major Orthodox religions." The knight replied. "Were there any casualties?" "No, it seems he is just testing his abilities." Emperor Rhodes fell into silence. Thunder and lightning were indeed not the power of the three major sections. The War Pope was in charge of the storm, the Golden Church was the Holy Light, and the Arcane Council was fire, ice and arcane, all of which were different from thunder and lightning. Let's ignore it for now, as long as he doesn't endanger the imperial capital. Emperor Rhodes made a decision. "Well, don't tell the Holy See about this, and send more people to patrol later." "Yes." The knight accepted the order and left the hall. West of the imperial capital of the Rhodes Empire. A figure covered in a black cloak walked out of the alley, and there were many players walking back and forth on both sides of the street. "Damn, the professions of the blood cult are too strong. It seems that the royal guards of the Golden Church are too weak. Even the judge can't compare to them, right?" A player squatted on the side of the road, waving his hands in the air in front of him, and exclaimed from time to time, "I heard that the blood cult is about to build a temple in Soros Royal City to recruit players. Should we give it a try? But we have already changed jobs. Can we still change careers? Didn't you read the official information? Every player has one chance to change their profession for free, but they can only change to a profession of the heretic sect." "Excuse me." Just as the two were talking, A figure in a black cloak walked up to them and asked, "What is this blood cult you were talking about?" The sudden voice interrupted the conversation between the two players. They looked over and saw a man in black with no ID on his head. He was an NPC. There are actually NPCs that actively look for players. "Is there a mission?" One of the players showed an excited expression. "My friend, the blood cult is." The player began to explain incessantly, while his companion on the other side looked at the man in black in front of him with some suspicion. "You mean this heretical sect called the Blood Sect ignored the Golden Church and directly established a temple in the Soros Royal City, intending to spread their faith?" The man in black said in disbelief. "Yes, I tell you, the Blood King is a powerful hero. Even the Pope of the Church of War has to give him face," the player continued. As he was talking, his companion beside him pulled him. "What's wrong?" The player was stunned. "Look at this." The player next to him said excitedly, pointing at the information he had just discovered. "Name? Ancient Dragon Follower Elite, Level 55, Intermediate, Occupation, Dragon Soul Warlock Favorability, Normal Danger Level, Highly Fatal Shit, Heretic." The player couldn't help but say it out loud. The man in black also changed his expression at this time. "Are you investigating me? This big boss?" The two players showed excitement on their faces. All players are very interested in heretical sections. Some players are curious. After all, heretical sects are very rare. Some players want to report to the Golden Church to get some benefits, and some players want to switch to the profession of heretical sects. So far, the only ones known to players are the Blood Sect and the Morningstar sect of Lear's wife Myria. The power of the Blood King and Myria is deeply rooted in the hearts of the people, which also makes the heretic sect popular among the player community. The ancient believer in front of him was obviously a heretic, ancient dragon. Dragons are extremely powerful beings in any game. Would a sect that believes in ancient dragons be weak? Just when the two players were about to kneel down and lick the thighs of the powerful, the man in black in front of them took the first step. Two bright red lightning bolts shot out from the hands of the man in black, directly knocking the two men unconscious. "You are attacked by a lightning chain and fall into a paralyzed and dizzy state for 60 seconds. A system prompt appeared in front of the two people, and they fell to the ground before they could say anything. The last thing they saw was a pair of golden pupils under the black robe. Ancient dragon believers suddenly appeared in the capital of Rhodes. In the Pope's Hall, Lier looked at the posts in the forum and raised his eyebrows. Other heretical sects are finally beginning to come to the fore according to the trajectory of the previous life. There are the Ancient Dragon sect of the Rhodes Empire, the Morningstar sect of Kalia, the Blood sect of Brayfield, and the Wild Beast sect of Soros. These are relatively well-known heretical sections. The main plot of Brayfield in the previous life was to attack the blood cult believers hiding in the Pharaoh fortress, that is, Lear. The Stewart family was destroyed as a result. Princess Milia of Chinching was taken to Kalia. With the protection of the Arcane Council, the Golden Church had no choice but to give up the Wild Beast cult, which believed in barbaric laws, took the initiative to provoke a war with the War Church during the war trial, which resulted in the War Church suffering heavy losses in the war trial. In the end, they were completely wiped out by the encirclement and suppression of the War Church and the Golden Church. It can be said that they were courting their own death. As for the Ancient Dragon sect that believes in the laws of the Ancient Dragons, Lier remembered that the other party seemed to be a member of the royal family of the Rhodes Empire. The other party's ending was not good either, just because she chose the most difficult way, which was to usurp the throne. The former Emperor Rhodes was a reincarnated being who eventually usurped the throne. This ancient dragon believer intended to follow in her father's footsteps, but unfortunately failed in the end. After taking a look at the increasing number of comments in the post, Lier shook his head. No matter what these heretical sects would do, he couldn't control them now. They were too far away. It seems that the only one who can intervene is the Wild Beast sect hidden in Soros, but the game has been launched for a long time, and this Wild Beast sect seems to have not existed and has never shown up. What are you thinking about? In the house, Milia walked to the balcony, looked at Lier and asked with her head tilted. Looking at the lovely appearance of the girl in front of him, it was hard for Lier to imagine Myria as such a majestic goddess. "I prefer to keep this attitude," he complained in his heart, then smiled and said, "I'm thinking about the heretical sect." A heretical sect? Milia was stunned. "Are you talking about us?" All she could think of was blood and the Morning Star. "No, not us." Lier shook his head. "By the way, Milia, can you use your astrology to help me see the future?" What do you want to do? Milia's expression became serious. Astrology is an exclusive ability of the Morningstar Law, and it is also a feared ability. So even Milia rarely uses it. From her awakening to now, Milia has only seen the future related to Lear, and it is only used when there is concern about Lear. I got the news that there is a heretical sect hiding in Soros. Lear said softly. I hope you can help me find them. What do you want to do with them? Milia asked with a frown. Let them join the blood cult. Lear stated his intention. This was an idea that Lear had had a long time ago, to unite all the heretical sects and establish an alliance, so that even if the Golden Church really launched a large-scale attack, it would be able to resist. Although he is not particularly afraid of the Golden Church with his current strength, once the main mission is released and the Golden Church orders a purge of heretics, the players will be divided. He was not afraid of the Golden Church, but if the Golden Church raised an army to attack, he could only hide in the old dream of the Blood King city. After all, the Blood Elves had only a few hundred people, which was completely different from the Golden Church that had been passed down for so many years. He can hide, but it's different for those players who have switched to the blood law profession. It is too easy to detect each other among players. Those players cannot hide for too long and will be caught. The most likely outcome is that they will be imprisoned by the Golden Church. Lear can also choose to bring these players to the old dream, but it is difficult to guarantee the loyalty of these players if they stay in the old dream. No player likes to be a coward when playing games. Therefore, if you want to truly fight against the Golden Church, in addition to attracting more players as quickly as possible, you also need to unite with other heretical sections. You want another heretic sect to join the Blood Sect? Don't you think that's too far-fetched? Milia said unhappily. The Golden Church judges heretics and is the enemy of all heretical sects, but the enemy of my enemy is not necessarily my friend. Behind every heretical sect stands a god who survived the destruction. Want one god to bow to another? Maybe so, but I want to give it a try. Lear smiled. In his imagination, if he had not come to the royal city of Soros, he would have turned the Pharaoh Fortress into the headquarters of the blood cult, attracted more heretical sects, and finally made the Pharaoh Fortress the base of all heretical sections. When the barrier of the Decision Mountains is opened, players will stop at the Pharaoh Fortress when heading to more advanced maps. Build the Pharaoh Fortress into a transit station connecting the advanced map and the initial map. There are 1 million game players now, and this is just the first batch of players. More gaming equipment will be distributed later, and more game players will arrive. By then, there will be many heretical sects in the Pharaoh Fortress, and there will also be more heretical professions for players to choose from. This also increases the influence of heretical sects among the player community, allowing the Blood Sect and many other heretical sects to compete with other Orthodox sects in high-level maps. Heretical sects do not have as many believers as Orthodox ones, so they can only make up for it among the players. Thinking in his mind, Lear suddenly smiled and shook his head. He was already daydreaming before he even started thinking. End of this chapter. Chapter 209, The Future Wild Beast High Priest. Anyway, Milia, are you willing to help me? Lear stood up and hugged Milia in his arms, feeling the warmth from Lear's body. Milia's ears turned slightly red, and then she nodded. What do you want me to predict? Greta. Lear said a name. Greta? Milia was stunned. That's right. Lear's eyes became deep. The Beast Cult is a sect that believes in barbarism and bestiality. The core members of the sect all have bestial characteristics, and Cardanus, a member of the Lionheart family, also has bestial characteristics. The bloodline of the War Lion is very similar to the power of the Wild Beast sect. Lear remembered that it was Greta who first came into contact with the Wild Beast sect, and she was even once regarded as the saint of the Wild Beast sect. Is the Greta you are talking about the daughter of Pope Duval? Milia asked uncertainly. Yes. Lear nodded. The daughter of the War Pope is related to another heretical sect? Milia was a little skeptical. In the War Church, Greta's status could be said to be the same as that of an heir to a country. After all, Duval only had this one daughter. She was a little skeptical, but looking at Lear, she suddenly felt that this was not impossible. After all, as the special executive of the Church of War, Lear himself was also the leader of the blood cult. She is Lear's wife and also the goddess of the morning star. Shaking her head helplessly, Milia sighed. Is it just Greta? Only Greta, Lear answered. Pope's Hall, training ground. Greta and Avian were still practicing their ability to summon storms. After Avian taught the war church the various uses of summoning storms, the entire war church was excited about these combat skills. Avian held the sword in her hand, and a scene flashed through her mind. When Lear was fighting the snakeman in the Beasttide, he summoned a storm and then disappeared in it that time. Because Lear was swallowed by the giant snake, Avian didn't have the energy to care about such fighting skills, but now that Lear has returned, she also asked Lear for advice on this fighting skill. Lear had shown her this skill at Fort Pharaoh, when the storm came and the knight disappeared, as if he had become the storm itself. Lear called this combat skill Storm Shadow. At that time, Avian could not understand the essence of this combat skill at all. But as she was promoted to a higher level and allocated more attribute points to agility, she began to have some vague insights. There was a gleam of light in his eyes, and the wind whistled in Avian's ears. Greta on the other side also narrowed her eyes as she watched the scene. A storm enchantment. As she thought about it in her heart, a storm gathered around her. She had also learned this fighting technique. In an instant, both Greta and Avian's speed increased suddenly, but the difference was that Greta used the power of the storm completely to enchant and increase her speed, but the storm was still raging around Avian. Just as their swords were about to touch, the storm around Avian suddenly expanded, and then Avian's figure disappeared in the storm. Greta, who was about to have a serious fight with Avian, missed her target and had to work hard to keep herself steady. She stood there in confusion, and could only see the sweeping storm. At this moment, the lion spirit in her body emerged. Behind, a deep voice sounded. Greta understood and turned around instantly. A sharp sword emerged from the storm and was caught by Greta accurately. Seeing this scene, Avian was stunned. She had never expected that Greta could predict such an attack of hers. The lion spirit behind her gradually dimmed. Avian was completely out of strength after making this attack. Storm Shadow is indeed powerful, but the consumption of magic power and physical strength is too horrible. Avian feels that she has to wait until she breaks through to the extraordinary level before she can use it normally. Avian. Greta was shocked to see Avian fall down. She thought she had hurt her and quickly helped Avian up. I'm fine, Greta, I just consumed too much magic power. Avian stood up from the ground, but her face was a little pale. Too much magic power consumed? Greta was stunned for a moment, thinking of the storm just now. Avian, what was that just now? She asked. It's another combat skill that Lear taught me. He called it Storm Hiding Shadow. Avian explained, it uses extremely fast speed in the raging storm to hide oneself, as if blending into the storm. I still find it difficult to use it now. Avian shook her head and said, as if she had thought of something. She looked at Greta in surprise and said, by the way, Greta, you were able to predict my attack just now. Ah. That was my lion spirit that reminded me. Greta said a little embarrassedly. My lion spirit has been upgraded recently and has gained consciousness. You are my Lionheart Knight. My lion spirit can sense your breath, so I was able to block your attack just now. Hearing this, Avian was stunned for a moment, and she glanced at the lion spirit behind Greta. At this moment, the lion spirit seemed to have indeed undergone some changes, and its dark eyes became lively. Can the lion spirit still be conscious? Avian asked in surprise. Yes, this is also the blood power of our Cardenas family. When our lion spirit becomes strong enough, it will have independent consciousness and can help us fight in battle. Not only can it remind us to fight, but it can even have a physical body after being promoted to the extraordinary level. Greta said proudly. Avian listened. Such power was beyond her understanding. She unconsciously glanced at the dim lion spirit behind her, but there was no change. It was still just a dim shadow. Only people in our Cardenas family have the ability of lion spirit. The Lionheart Knight can only obtain power and some skills through lion spirit. Greta saw what Avian was thinking and explained to Avian. Nodded somewhat disappointedly, thinking that she was thinking too much. Don't mention it. Is the Storm Shadow you just mentioned Lear's new fighting skill? Greta was more interested in the fighting skill that Avian had just displayed than her own lion spirit. Yes, Lear taught me. However, this fighting skill can only be used by agile war knights. Only with great speed can one hide in the storm. Avian nodded and explained, can only the agile war knights learn it? Greta was a little disappointed. While the two were talking, a knight in armor came forward from a distance. Cousin Greta, it's time for lunch, do you want to have a meal together? The knight who came over had animal ears and tail like Greta, and seemed to be a member of Cardanus' tribe. Is it noon already? Greta looked up at the sky when she heard the voice. The scorching sun shone down, which was a little dazzling, but in Soros's cold winter, such sunshine was considered comfortable. Let's go, Gran, Avian, let's go together. Greta glanced at her cousin, then pulled Avian and walked out of the training ground. Seeing Greta pulling Avian away on her own, Gran showed a helpless expression and could only follow behind. There is a restaurant inside Soros's Vatican, which is open to believers in the Vatican free of charge. The three of them came to the restaurant, each chose the food they wanted to eat, and then sat down at an empty table. Avian and Greta sat together, and Gran sat on the other side. Avian, what plans does Special Executive Lear have recently? The two women sat down and just took a bite. Greta asked Avian. Lear? What plans could he have? He's always been hanging out with Miria, staying in his room and never leaving the house. Avian said helplessly when she heard Greta's question. After coming to Soros, she rarely met Lear. She was either training with Greta or shopping with Greta. Even if she went to find Lear, seeing Lear and Miria together, Avian was embarrassed to be a light bulb. He really forgot about his sister after getting a wife. He had always been attached to her when they were young. Avian felt a little resentful. Greta was also a little embarrassed and a little disappointed. She still had a good impression of Lear, strong and handsome. Greta has always wanted to get in touch with Lear, but has never found an opportunity. Sitting opposite the two men, Gran, who was directly ignored, looked a little embarrassed. It was clearly him who called the two of them to come for dinner, but neither of them even looked at him. Listening to Avian and Greta mention Lear, Glenn's expression inexplicably became even gloomier. He lowered his head and ate lunch in silence. Neither of the two women noticed Gran's emotions. Avian complained while stabbing a piece of steak. Forget about Lear. With Miria, he might have forgotten about the two of us. It's not a good thing to talk bad about people behind their backs. When Avian was speaking, a voice suddenly sounded from behind her. Avian almost dropped the fork in her hand in fright. She turned her head sharply and saw Lear walking slowly towards her. In the restaurant, many war believers stood up respectfully and saluted because of Lear's appearance. This is a respect from the heart. Lear, who brought the combat skill of raising storms to the church, is like a saint of the goddess of war in the eyes of these believers. Lear waved his hand, smiled at the believers, then walked towards Avian. After glancing at the two women who were having dinner, he walked directly to the opposite side of the two women and sat down next to Gran. My dear sister, I haven't forgotten you. Lear smiled and casually saw Greta beside him and said, of course I won't forget Greta either. When the two women heard what Lear said, their faces turned red, but the meanings were different. I heard you say you want to go to the blood temple to take a look. Lear asked, yes, do you want to go together? There was a glimmer of hope in Avian's eyes. She had indeed not been with her brother Lear for a long time. Then let's go together. Lear nodded without refusing. You agreed? Avian said in surprise, that is the territory of the blood cult. The two beautiful ladies naturally need protection when they travel. Lear said with a smile, you're so smooth-talking. Avian glared at Lear with blushing cheeks. The three of them were communicating naturally. On the other side, Gran, who was eating his lunch with his head down, was like an outsider and no one noticed him. His downcast eyes had become gloomy since Lear's arrival, and this gloominess deepened as he listened to the three people's friendly conversation. He is a member of the Cardanus tribe, a tribe that possesses the lion spirit. In the Cardanus family, only those who have awakened the lion spirit will show animal characteristics and are qualified to enter the upper echelons of the Cardanus family. However, there are very few people who can awaken the lion spirit. Generally, it only appears among the descendants of the Pope. It can be said that it is a great fortune for a side branch like him to awaken the lion spirit. After awakening the lion spirit, he was trained intensively by Duval. Together with Greta, Gran has always regarded Greta as a role model and the object of his admiration. When he learned that Greta was going to sign a Lionheart Knight contract with an outsider named Lear Stewart, he was jealous and angry. He understood what it meant for a Lionheart Knight contract to be signed between opposite sexes. It was more of a marriage contract than a contract. How could he accept that his beloved cousin married someone else? Gran was very angry, but he didn't take any further action because he knew that Duval wanted to match him up with Greta. They are all people who have awakened the lion spirit, and they are of similar blood. After they come together, they are more likely to give birth to offspring who can awaken the lion spirit. Although he is Greta's cousin, the kinship between the two is so weak that it can be ignored and does not hinder their marriage. Gran believes that Duval will definitely not agree to Greta's request, but now, with the appearance of Lear, all this has changed. Duval no longer made any move to bring him and Greta together, but instead turned his attention to Lear, listening to the conversation. Between the three people beside him, Gran gripped the fork in his hand tightly, and the powerful force even deformed the fork in his hand. Just as he was forcibly suppressing the jealousy and anger in his heart, Lear suddenly turned his head and looked at the young man beside him with deep eyes. "Are you Greta's cousin? Do you want to go with us?" Lear said with a gentle voice and a smile. This gentle voice startled Gran. His body trembled for a moment, and then he raised his head in panic. "I remember your name is Glenn?" Lear said softly. Gran was stunned for a long time, and only reacted after Greta kicked him hard under the table. "I'm Gran," he said quickly. "I've heard of you. You are the only branch of the family besides Greta and the Pope who has awakened the lion spirit." Lear looked at Gran with a smile on his face. "The blood of Cardenas has awakened in you. You will become a powerful war knight." He paused and praised inexplicably Gran Cardenas, the future beast priest. Miria predicted the future. In his previous life, Lear didn't care too much about the wild beast sect. At that time, he spent most of his time in the alien space of the war trial resisting the demonic servitude. As for the wild beast sect, he only knew that Greta was kidnapped by the sect and was intended to be used as a carrier for the arrival of the beast spirit. When he went to rescue Greta, the high priest of wild beasts had already died, and he would not care about the name of a dead person. End of this chapter. Chapter 210, Wild Beast and Lillian's new mission. After receiving Lear's praise, Glenn was stunned for a while, and finally responded, "Thank you." He spoke in a stiff tone, but his eyes revealed a complicated look. After receiving Gran's response, Lear reached out and patted him on the shoulder, then stood up and looked at Avian and Greta opposite him. "Let's go." Avian and Greta finally reacted. Although they felt that Lear's attitude towards Gran was a little strange, the two women did not think much about it. They put down the cutlery in their hands and stood up. Seeing this, Gran quickly finished the last of his food and followed. Everyone walked out of the Pope's hall and got on the carriage. Gran volunteered to drive the carriage. Only Lear and 3 other people were in the carriage. The carriage started moving quickly. While Gran was steering the carriage, he carefully peeked at Lear in the carriage. Until now, he had never really had any contact with Lear, the special executive. He only knew that Greta wanted to sign a Lionheart Knight contract with him. Although the contract object was later changed to Avian, since Greta was willing to sign a contract with Lear, it meant that Greta had a good impression of Lear. So from the beginning, Gran was full of hostility towards Lear, but Lear's performance today changed Gran's impression of him. This special executive officer gave people a very gentle feeling, as if he was very polite to everyone, but Glenn, who had suffered a lot since childhood, keenly felt the indifference in Lear's heart. The outward gentleness is just a disguise, indifference is the true nature. Gran felt the difference in attitudes toward Avian, Greta, and even him. Lear truly cares about Avian, but towards him and Greta, it is just a superficial perfunctory attitude. Lear has no interest in Greta, at least not in the same fond feelings that he has. The person he had always been hostile to was actually not interested in Greta? Doesn't this mean that Greta's affection is just wishful thinking, and his inner hostility is like the emotions of a clown in a dark corner? For a moment, a trace of shame surged in Gran's heart. He withdrew his gaze from Lear and forced himself to look straight ahead. Just as he was trying hard to suppress his inner emotions, a voice sounded in his heart, "This man is dangerous." Hearing the voice, Gran calmed down instantly and called out a name in his mind, "Mr. Hawk?" "It's me." The voice sounded again. "Are you talking about Special Officer Lear in the carriage?" Gran's attention shifted to the voice in his heart. "It's the man on the carriage. He is very powerful. I can feel that he is even more powerful than your Pope. He also has other special powers that do not belong to war or the other 2 orthodox religions. You'd better stay away from him," said the voice called Hawk. Hearing the voice, Gran was stunned for a moment, but soon thought of Lear's wife Milia. Mr. Hawk must be referring to the wife of Lear's special officer, the pagan who governs the law of the Morning Star. "Mr. Hawk, the special power you are talking about should come from the wife of Special Executive Lear, who is a believer in the heretical law of Morning Star." Gran explained in his heart. "Morning Star law?" Hawk was obviously shocked by Gran's explanation. "You said he was the special executive of your Pope, but his wife is a heretic. Does your church allow such a person to exist? It should be allowed, right?" The trial of heretics is just the doctrine of the Golden Church. Our war church will only take action against heretics who endanger the church. We are still very principled. Gran blinked. Principles? Hawk's tone became strange when he heard Gran's words, but he did not refute. Yes, Mr. Hawk. Actually, I think you can meet with His Holiness the Pope. You have the power to help me awaken the bloodline of the war lion. His Holiness the Pope will definitely value you and help you recover your strength better. I told you, I have reasons why I cannot be exposed. Hawk interrupted Gran before he could finish. You just need to do what I ask you to do. Hawk's tone became cold. I can help you awaken your lion spirit, and naturally I can seal your lion spirit again. Don't do unnecessary things. After hearing what Hawk said, Gran was stunned for a moment. This was the first time that the other party spoke to him in such a cold tone. Gran lowered his head a little disappointedly and responded in his heart, I know. Deep in Gran's heart, in the ocean of his soul, a golden lion was lying there. Next to the lion, there was a small lion sitting quietly on the ground looking at the little lion with lifeless eyes beside him. The golden lion raised his proud head. War lion? We the Mad Beast clan have always been called Mad Beasts. We are definitely not war lions. The golden lion roared. No one knew what Gran and Hawk were talking about in their hearts, but Lear felt something strange at this moment. A violent force flashed through Gran's body, and Lear felt the ultimate savage animality, an aura far beyond the war-mad lion bloodline of the Cardenas family. It's a heretical law. Before Lear could think too much, Lillian's voice sounded in Lear's ears. Lillian's sudden appearance startled Lear. It had been a while since Lillian spoke to him. Lear raised his eyebrows. Why did you come out? Lear teased in his heart, if I don't show up again, you'll probably forget about me, right? Lillian said unhappily, how could that be? During this period of time, I was still talking to Milia about how to expand the blood cult. We already have the 100 blood believers you requested, and now even the blood temple is about to be built. Lear replied helplessly, Oomph. You have a conscience. Lillian snorted. By the way, where is your real body? Let me see if there is any chance to bring you out. Our blood cult is about to appear in the world, and it's not good for you, the Lord of Blood, to only have one incarnation, right? Lear suddenly asked, what do you want to do? You already have that woman, Milia. Do you still want to do something to me? Lillian became alert instantly. An embarrassed expression appeared on Lear's face. To be honest, he did have such an idea. After getting Milia, he no longer had much interest in ordinary girls. Conquering the goddess would give him a greater sense of accomplishment. I and the dark abyss, the white-haired girl trapped in countless chains, had a ruddy complexion. Lillian bit her lip. As a god, she knew very well what Lear was thinking. Normally, she would hide in the Blood King's robe and peek at Lear and Miria's fight. The hateful goddess of the morning star seemed to know that she was peeking, and would look at her with contempt every time when she was enjoying it. Lillian always had troubles but couldn't tell Lear about it, right? That would also expose her peeping. After a long silence, Lillian spoke. If you want to come find me, wait until the barrier of the Decision Mountains is opened. I will tell you my location then. In the carriage, Lear also heard Lillian's reply, do we have to wait until the barrier of the Decision Mountains is opened? Lear was a little disappointed. There was still a long time to go. It seemed that the plan to conquer the Lord of Blood had to be postponed. By the way, did you miss me when you came out today? Lear shook his head and asked again. Who would miss you? Lillian snorted coldly, and then her tone softened. I heard your conversation with the War Pope about the war trial. I have a task for you. Mission? Lear was stunned. That's right. The demons and beasts of extinction you mentioned are all creations left over from destruction. When you mentioned them, I noticed that there is indeed a beast of extinction sealed under the city. Lillian's tone became serious. Lear's expression also turned gloomy. He knew about the demonic servitude and the beast of extinction, but he never expected that these two were actually related to destruction. After coming into contact with so many gods, Lear also understood that when an era reaches its peak, destruction will come as expected, as if remaking the world, indiscriminately destroying all living things, including gods. Lillian and Milia are the gods who survived the destruction. What do you want me to do? Lear asked in a deep voice. I sense that there are relics of my past beneath the city, Lillian replied. The crown of blood. A crown of blood. Lear repeated the term that he now possesses the Blood Prisoner Mask, Blood King Robe, and Blood Vortex, all of which are relics of the powerful blood law, and the Blood Crown sounds even more impressive just by the name. What is the use of this relic? Asked Lear. It can enhance your ability to control blood in all aspects. It's like your blood resonance, which can only control blood for a short period of time. But if you have the crown of blood. Lillian didn't continue. Lillian didn't finish her words, but Lear's expression had become somewhat excited. Blood resonance is the skill he has used most often. For professionals lower than him, one blood resonance can make the opponent lose combat effectiveness, and even weaker targets will die directly when facing professionals of the same level. Blood resonance can also control a person in an instant, and it is hard to defend against. If the ability of blood resonance is strengthened, giving him greater control over blood, who will be his opponent? As long as it is a living being, there is blood in its body, and no one can escape his control. This time the mission requires you to get the crown of blood, and the reward is the same. Lillian continued, the mission is to get the relic, and the reward is the relic, which can be said to be no reward. Now Lillian doesn't even give experience points. Lear raised his eyebrows but didn't care. He was used to Lillian's poverty. Okay. Lear accepted the task. The system prompt appeared in front of him, and Lear took a look and closed it. That's it. When the old dream under this city opens, I will guide you to find the crown of blood. Lillian said finally, and then there was no sound. Feeling that Lillian had really left, Lear yawned and moved his gaze to Avian and Greta beside him, and found that both women were looking at him. What's the matter? Lear asked. It seems like you are always so leisurely. Greta blushed when Lear looked at her, and said in a low voice, I'm the special executive of the church. If I get busy, many people in the entire war church might not be able to sleep. Dival probably doesn't want to see such a scene. Lear shrugged and joked. Greta was stunned by what Lear said. She felt that it made some sense but also felt that something was wrong. Lear didn't speak to the two women anymore. He looked out the window and saw that they had arrived at the blood temple. That he appears to be very leisurely on the surface, but in fact, his blood incarnation is extremely tired, and this blood temple is the proof of it. At this time, many players gathered in the open space in front of the temple. Among them were players of the Golden Law, mage players, and of course players of the Church of War. Many players gathered together to compete. After Li Huanhuan released the news that the Blood Temple would be open to all players after its construction, allowing everyone to switch to the Blood Law profession, a large number of players came to Soros. Among them are players who want to join the Blood Cult, and also players who want to compete with the Blood Cult's professions. The entrance of the Blood Temple has turned into a dueling arena. Players with the IDs of Lung Tu and Nolan are fighting against Wudi Zwijianlang. It's War Knight versus Blood Hunter. Wudi Zwijianlang chose the Blood Hunter profession, and he had carefully studied it before changing his profession. Although the Blood Knight has the characteristic that the lower the health, the higher the damage, but in essence it is still a tank mainly based on physical strength. The Blood Hunter is different. The Blood Hunter represents super high agility and damage. The most handsome and invincible man holds a light sword in his hand, and behind him is a mountain of corpses and a sea of blood. This weapon worth 10 million may not be equipped by Wudi Zwijianlang yet, but just by carrying it on his back he can emit murderous aura and suppress all targets around him. It can be said to be extremely buggy. The long sword in his hand was bought from the blacksmith shop in the city. It was the best weapon he could afford. There was nothing he could do about it. Having money meant he could do what he wanted. In the past, when the server was first launched, players in small cities did not have much gold coins, but now Soros is the city with the most players. As long as you have money, you can buy a lot of gold and silver coins in minutes. Nolan and Wudi Zwijianlang collided in the center of the battlefield. After experiencing the failure with Li Huanhuan, he secretly practiced in the church and acquired a basic swordsmanship, so he had the confidence to come back and get his revenge. It's a pity that Li Huanhuan was not there, and it ended up turning into a duel with Wudi Zwijianlang. Feeling the heaviness on his body, Nolan now felt very aggrieved. He took a look at the bloody long sword carried on the back of Wudi Zwijianlang and felt that it was very unfair. This is a crushing victory in terms of equipment. Not real strength, he roared in his mind, but Wudi Zwijianlang didn't care about that. He picked up his sword and went up to Nolan and stabbed him. The long sword, burning with blood-red flames, directly burned Nolan's armor. The Blood Hunter skill, Blood Flame Blade. This is an equipment enchantment skill that can give the equipment a certain armor-piercing ability and can also burn the enemy for a long time. Looking at the flames burning on the sword, Nolan was hit again. Compared with the Blood Knight and the Blood Hunter, the charge of the War Knight looked so low. Chapter 211, the elderly judge who taught players swordsmanship and the Golden Church fighting against Nolan, Woody Zwigenlang, was full of excitement. He was just a rich second generation. In the previous games, even if he had spent money to get the best equipment, he could not defeat the professional players from these clubs, but now it's different. He enjoys the gaming experience where money makes you the boss. Nolan didn't know how to defend against every blow from the long sword burning with blood flames. The blood-colored flames were like maggots on the tarsal bones. Once they got on his body, they would spread to other parts of his body. It was not like ordinary flames that could be easily extinguished. Is this the top professional player of LoL2? Nothing more than that. Woody Zwigenlang shouted loudly and launched a more fierce attack with his sword. It was called a fierce attack, but it was just a chaotic and random waving of the sword. Seeing this, Nolan's eyes flashed with a sharp light. In terms of attributes and skills, he cannot compare with Woody Zwigenlang, but in terms of techniques, he crushes his opponent. Under the random hacking of Woody Zwigenlang, Nolan finally found an opportunity. He rushed at the right time and put Woody Zwigenlang into a dizzy state. The invincible and handsome man holding a long sword was completely unprepared for this scene. He could only watch Nolan continue to reduce his health while in a dizzy state. The battle situation came to a critical moment. When the dizziness ended, Woody Zwigenlang's health had dropped to freezing point. Nolan's blood bar also turned red under the burning of the blood flames, and both of them were bloodthirsty. Just then, there was a commotion among the crowd not far away. The players who were originally gathered together dispersed, and Lear came over with Avian and others. "What are you doing?" Lear took a quick glance and saw Nolan and Woody Zwigenlang fighting together. Lear had impressions of both of these people, and he was particularly impressed by the behavior of Woody Zwigenlang, who scammed people on the street. As for Nolan, he is an old rival from the previous life. In their previous lives, both of them were leaders of the law of war, but Lear's Aslan royal swordsmanship suppressed Nolan so much that he could not raise his head. The two fought with each other, but they had a good relationship in private. Seeing Lear appear, Nolan and Woody Zwigenlang both stopped. The former immediately bowed and saluted. "Greetings, Your Majesty, the executor." Woody Zwigenlang on the side was a little embarrassed. He was now a believer of the blood cult. The incident of him blocking people on the road and causing trouble had turned Lear's impression of him into indifference. He was somewhat worried that the special executive of the War Church in front of him would kill him if he was unhappy. The Blood King shouldn't turn against the Church of War because of this alien who can be resurrected? Woody Zwigenlang took a few steps back and placed his hand on the sea of corpses and blood behind him. He can die, but the mountain of corpses and sea of blood are his life, and he must not lose them. Why do you want to fight him? I remember the church should have issued an order not to conflict with the people of the blood sect. Lear did not look at Woody Zwigenlang, but looked at Nolan instead. Nolan was stunned for a moment. He didn't expect Lear to talk to him, and there didn't seem to be any blame in his tone. "Your Majesty, we didn't have a conflict. We were just competing and exchanging ideas. Woody Zwigenlang and I are both extraordinary people, so we can be considered fellow villagers," Nolan explained. "Just like that?" Lear asked thoughtfully. "Yes," Nolan replied. "That's it, be more careful next time." Lear nodded, and then asked, "What kind of swordsmanship did you use just now?" "Yes, Your Excellency the Executor." "Did you learn this from the knights?" "It was Knight Commander Ron who taught me. I remember that you, the aliens, have been here for only over a month, and you have already mastered the mothing swordsmanship. You have a good talent," Lear praised. Nolan was stunned when he heard the praise, and so were the other players beside him. Ever since the players came to this world, all the NPCs had not had much good feelings towards them. Even though the three orthodox religions have opened up career changes to aliens, the status of aliens in the three orthodox religions is still extremely low, just like racial discrimination. This is the consensus of all players. When accepting tasks, various delays and procrastination are common. Therefore, the blood cult, which values players, will become more and more popular among players. But now, Lear, a high-ranking figure in the Church of War, actually praised Nolan in public, and did not seem to discriminate. "Your Majesty, the Executor, don't you reject us aliens?" Nolan suddenly asked. "Why should I exclude you?" Lear laughed. He is fully aware of the player's situation. The ability to come back to life makes players envied, but it also brings discrimination. In fact, the three major orthodox religions do not like players, but they have to carry out the orders of the gods. Lier suddenly found it a little ridiculous. He guessed that those high and mighty gods brought the players to this world probably to spread faith among the players and improve their own strength, but those gods were high up on their thrones, and after bringing the players here, they paid no attention to them, except for delivering a few vague oracles. The mortal church will obey the oracles, but these special people summoned by the gods have also become people who use backdoors in the eyes of the church. Being excluded is a matter of course. And the gods of the three major Orthodox religions are probably unaware of these circumstances. How could the proud gods know about these situations? Bringing aliens into this world is already a blessing. Lear thought to himself that he could take advantage of this. The Church of War does not like players, but he is different. Whether he is the Blood King or the Special Executive, he must gain fame among the player community. While Lear and Nolan were talking, Li Huanhuan and Dahe hurried over from a distance. When the two saw Lear in the center, their expressions suddenly became complicated. Lear also saw Li Huanhuan and the other person, but he didn't say anything. He just nodded to Nolan and said, "You have good talent. If you have time, you can come to me. I can teach you swordsmanship." Now that the Blood King has established a reputation among the player community, it is time for him, as the special executive, to show his face. The blood law profession is very powerful, and the ordinary war law profession is difficult to fight against, but Lear has swordsmanship that increases his combat power. Only by being loyal to him can you obtain swordsmanship that can compete with the blood law. He can accept all players that the church does not value. After hearing what Lear said, Nolan was immediately excited. He had seen the internal test recording of Li Huanhuan, and he knew very well what was in Lear's character store: high level, extraordinary, and even legendary Aslan royal swordsmanship. Thinking of this, Nolan bowed respectfully towards the young man in front of him. Although he was just an NPC and looked about the same age as him, he was worthy of his respect. "Thank you, Your Majesty," he said in a deep voice. Seeing this scene, Lear smiled and said nothing more. If he remembered correctly, those famous game clubs were about to decide to enter the law game, and at that time the law game would be truly taken seriously. When the second wave of gaming equipment is distributed, the game law will become truly popular across the country. By then, the number of players will surge, and it will no longer be like now with only tens of thousands of players in a city. After extending an olive branch to Nolan, Lear, Avian and others looked at the Blood Temple for a while and then left. The next day, Nolan found him, and Lear generously taught Nolan some basic sword skills, iron heart swordsmanship belonging to the war law profession. If the White Crow swordsmanship is a general swordsmanship with weak amplification ability, then the iron heart swordsmanship is the strongest swordsmanship that a war knight can learn in the early stage, and it is even comparable to some mid-level swordsmanship. The effect of iron heart swordsmanship is very simple. It can greatly improve the user's strength, greatly increase the resistance to control effects, and increase defense to a certain extent. At the same time, the improvement in attack strength is far greater than that of White Crow swordsmanship. For melee professions, as long as they are not war law professionals who follow the agility system, iron heart swordsmanship is the best choice in the early stage. Moreover, the learning requirements of iron heart swordsmanship are not high, and it can be learned as long as the attributes are sufficient to the apprentice level. On the fourth day after acquiring the iron heart swordsmanship, Nolan once again found Li Huanhuan and others. This time, with the help of Tiexin swordsmanship, Nolan almost defeated 3 people at once. If he had not been exhausted at the end, he almost completed the feat of defeating Li Huanhuan, Dahe, and Wudi Zwijianlang in AROW. In the end, he lost to Wudi Zwijianlang because the suppression ability of the Sea of Corpses and Blood was too strong. This battle made many people realize a problem. In the game law, a strong profession is important, but a strong profession is not necessarily invincible. Just like Nolan, he was able to defeat Li Huanhuan and others with just basic swordsmanship. For a time, many players had their eyes on Lear, and the screen recording of Li Huanhuan during the internal test was also dug up, and the contents of Lear's character store were directly exposed. The combat effectiveness of a basic sword technique has been greatly improved. What about the advanced, extraordinary, or even legendary sword techniques? In the Pope's Hall and the guest room, Lear looked at the forum in front of him, where the players were arguing fiercely. The battle between Nolan, Li Huanhuan and the other two was broadcast live, and Lear watched it all. In this way, his identity as the special executive of the War Church also came into the sight of the player community. Whether the player chooses to join the blood cult or pledge allegiance to Lear, he wins. After looking at the forum for a while, Lear closed it. He raised his head and looked into the distance, which was the direction of the Blood Temple. The Blood Temple is about to be completed. A week later, a group of uninvited guests came to Soros. The other two priests of the Church of War have all arrived, including the two golden high priests and an old man in a white robe. The old man had a face full of wrinkles and looked like someone who was about to die, but the believers of the golden church around him were very respectful to the old man. Even the two golden high priests. Rafar led the guests of the golden church into the Pope's hall. In the evening, the meeting on the blood cult was resumed when Lear arrived at the round table hall. Everyone else was already there. As soon as he entered the door, everyone's eyes were cast towards Lear. Lorena looked at Lear and blinked, as if she was looking at her son-in-law, while the people of the Golden Church looked at him sharply. Lear ignored him and sat in the empty seat next to Duval. Okay, now that everyone is here, Mr. Fernando, you can start talking if you have anything to say. Duval glanced at everyone and then looked at the old man who had his eyes closed. Only then did the old man open his eyes, and as soon as he opened his eyes, a terrifying aura swept across the entire roundtable hall. Some unsuspecting archbishops of the Church of War were forced to take several steps back by this momentum. No one expected the old man to behave like this. Duval and the three war consuls' faces suddenly turned gloomy. Only Lear leaned lazily in his chair, motionless. Fernando, I respect you as an elder, but you cannot act wildly in the war church. Duval roared, releasing a terrifying aura as well, and the two auras collided in the hall. The papers on the table were flying all over the place. Everyone was shocked by the momentum of the old man and Duval. After several seconds, Duval's momentum prevailed. The old man named Fernando lowered his eyes and said, Duval, you have grown up so big. When you were born, I was holding you in Raven's arms. Now that Raven is dead, the position of Pope has been handed over to you, but are you really fulfilling your duties? The old man raised his eyes again and looked at Lear, who had been sitting in the chair indifferently. The War Church and the Golden Church have always been brothers. We help each other, but you shouldn't harbor heretics. The old man's voice suddenly became cold and his terrifying aura rose again, this time targeting Lear. Almost at the same time, Lear raised his head with a smile on his face, and the same terrifying aura burst out, directly blocking the old man's power. Seeing that Lear easily resisted his attack, the old man's face changed slightly, but his arrogance remained. Just when he was about to attack Lear, Duval shouted angrily, Stop it! This time, Duval did not hold back. His aura, far more powerful than the old man's, directly broke up the confrontation between Lear and the old man. Fernando, I'll say it again, this is the War Church. Duval stared at the old man in front of him. As Duval roared, the hall fell silent. After a long while, Sylvia stood up and said, Mr. Fernando, I asked you to come here to deal with the blood cult's affairs. Please put other matters aside for the time being. The old man frowned when he heard this, looked at the powerful Duval in front of him, and finally shook his head. He was not a fool. He had just taken action just to test the status of this young man named Lear in the War Church. Now it seemed impossible to take action against Lear in the War Church. He thought for a moment, then looked at Lear and said, Young man, you are excellent, and Duval values you very much. If you are willing to hand over your wife, the heretic, the Golden Church will no longer pursue the matter of your communication with the heretic. Hearing this, Duval's face darkened. He had already given the old man a lot of face, but the other party didn't seem to appreciate it. Just as he was about to stop the old man's behavior, Lear raised his head, looked at the old man and said, Old man, you may have been glorious in the past, and you may have a peaceful old age in the future, but the premise is, don't mess with me. Lear's voice was calm, but anyone could hear the murderous intent in it. Lear will never allow anyone who wants to have any interest in Milia, even if he is overestimating his own abilities. End of this chapter. Chapter 212, The Blood King's Invitation and the Blood Temple's completion ceremony. That atmosphere in the hall became dead silent. It was the first time that Duval saw Lear show such a strong murderous intent. He opened his mouth. If Lear really wanted to kill Fernando, he might not be able to stop him. From what he knew now, Lear was a person of the heroic class, a dual law professional of war and arcane, and might even possess the power of the law of the Morning Star. As for Milia, Duval is even more difficult to understand. Although Fernando has reached the extraordinary limit, his status is still just that of a commander. The other party has set their sights on Milia, which is really like an old man hanging himself. Because he thinks his life is too long. Fernando, who was sitting on the other side, also instinctively broke out in a cold sweat. How many people did he have to kill to give rise to such a strong murderous intent? Sylvia on the side also swallowed when she saw this. After fighting with Milia, she no longer had any idea of provoking Lear and Milia if Fernando had never seen Milia's power. That girl was at least at the same level as the Pope. Silence spread in the hall. No one spoke. They just looked at the young man sitting there with a smile on his face. How many people did Lear kill? In this life, he is a good citizen, but in his previous life, he could not even remember how many people he had slaughtered in the game. In his previous life, Lear didn't know that the world of law was a real alien world, and thought it was a game with an incredible degree of reality. It is so realistic that even though there is a health bar, the killing and bleeding are exactly the same as. In reality, the real smell of blood made many players uncomfortable at the beginning. In the beginning, this kind of blood was only reflected on NPCs, but later after the game was updated, players would also see brains bursting and internal organs flowing all over the ground during fighting. You can often see two players, covered in wounds and even with their intestines spilling out, still fighting as if nothing had happened. Since then, restrictions have been placed on the live streaming of the game law, and it has become a game restricted to adults only. Since then, law has become a paradise for many perverted criminals, because in the game of law you can experience the ultimate cruel killing. In the hall, Fernando was locked in Lear's murderous intent. As the high priest who was the judge of the previous generation of the Golden Church, when had he ever been humiliated like this? But feeling the terrifying magic and murderous intent from Lear, Fernando opened his mouth but said nothing. Fernando could feel that the young man in front of him was not bragging. If he really wanted to try the young man's wife, Soros might become his burial place. Just then, there was a knock on the door outside the Hall of the Dead. Silence was broken, and Duval reacted. He glanced at Fernando and scolded, "Fernando, Lear is a special executive of the church, and his wife is also protected by the church. Put away your thoughts that you shouldn't have." Fernando's face turned red when he heard this, but he didn't dare to say anything. Duval gave him a way out, and even if it was embarrassing, he still had to take it. He snorted coldly and said nothing more. Seeing this, Duval breathed a sigh of relief, then looked at the War Knight believer guarding the door and nodded to him. The knight understood and opened the door to the hall. A guard came in hurriedly, holding a letter in his hand. "Your Holiness, this is an invitation from the blood cult." The guard did not notice anything unusual in the hall. He walked straight to Duval and handed the letter to him. "Invitation?" Duval was stunned for a moment. Then he took the invitation and opened it to take a look. After taking a look at the content above, Duval's expression became a little strange. The guard handed the letter to Duval and left, and the door of the hall was closed again. Duval raised his head, glanced at everyone and said, "The Blood King has sent us an invitation, inviting us to attend the ceremony of establishing the Blood Temple in 3 days." As he spoke, his eyes fell on Sylvia. He also wrote that everyone from the Golden Church is welcome to witness the Golden Saint becoming the Blood Saint. As soon as these words were spoken, the hall, which had just begun to relax a little, fell into silence again. Everyone looked towards the location of the Golden Church, and Sylvia and Fernando's faces turned extremely ugly. This invitation from the Blood King can be said to be a true contempt for the Golden Church. A heretical sect invited the Golden Church to participate in the completion ceremony of the temple, and also wanted to turn the saint of the Golden Church into a saint who believed in blood. This is completely the opposite of Tiangang. After a brief silence, Fernando stood up angrily. He glanced at Duval and Lear, and then said, "A small heretical sect dares to challenge the golden law again and again. They must be brought to justice. Duval, the War Church will not help you." Before Fernando could finish his words, Duval interrupted him. "I have reached an agreement with the Blood King. As long as the blood cult does not affect the church, we will not take action against them." Duval shook his head. "As for you," Duval paused for a moment, then said, "the Blood King has kidnapped the Golden Saint. I can allow you to go to war with the blood cult, but only within the Blood Temple area. If your fighting affects the citizens of Soros, I will stop it." Duval had no intention of helping the Golden Sea. When Fernando attacked Lear just now, he had already decided not to get involved in this mess. After all, helping Fernando might cause Lear's dissatisfaction. In his opinion, Lear and Milia must be more important than the Golden Church. Duval. Fernando did not hide his dissatisfaction with Duval's decision, but all he got was Duval's indifferent expression. "Fernando, this is the Church of War. Allowing you to attack the blood cult is already an assistance to the Golden Church." Duval shook his head at Fernando. Seeing Duval's tough look, Fernando clenched his fists, and finally he could only suppress his anger and said, "Then just watch. We have 4 extraordinary professionals from the Golden Church, which is enough to destroy that blood sect. Then I wish you good luck." Duval smiled, thinking of the strength of the blood cult that the Blood King had mentioned, and the astonishing number of blood elves that had appeared at the horse farm in the past few days. Duval is not optimistic about the war between the Golden Church and the blood cult, however. Even if the Golden Church loses this battle, it should be able to expose some of the strength of the blood sect. This is also what Duval wants to see. He wanted to see what kind of strength the sect had that could make the goddess issue an oracle to cooperate. The meeting ended unpleasantly. Fernando was too embarrassed to stay any longer, so he left with everyone from the Golden Church. After Fernando left, Lorena stretched, staying in the Arcane Council, accompanied by spells and books every day. What happened in the past few days was really more exciting than her life in so many years. After becoming the speaker of the Arcane Council, she basically never left the house. Lorena stood up and walked over to Lyre, who was about to leave. "You still love and care for your wife?" Hearing this, Lyre was stunned for a moment. Lorena ignored Lyre's surprised look, looked Lyre up and down, then smiled and said, "Well, I am relieved to leave Mina to you. You must treat her well." Duval, who was standing by, was shocked when he heard this. He knew that Mina was locked up by Lyre, but why was Lorena not worried as Mina's mother? Instead, she seemed to be entrusting her daughter to Lyre. After hearing what Lorena said, Lyre reacted after a brief moment of shock. "Chairman Lorena, Mina is your daughter and has nothing to do with me. Mina will be yours in half a year." Lorena smiled. "The spell will be analyzed within half a year." Lyre argued helplessly. Cora Lorena didn't seem to want to talk to Lyre about magic, so she just waved her hand and turned away. Duval listened to the conversation between the two, and after Lorena left, he quickly asked, "Lyre, Mina is temporarily studying magic with me." Speaker Lorena was just joking. Lyre quickly stopped Duval from asking questions. He didn't want Duval to push Greta to him again. The news that the blood cult's temple was about to be completed soon spread throughout the royal city of Soros. No one knew who had leaked the news of the invitation to the Golden Church to the Pope's Hall, but everyone knew that the Golden Saint was about to be transformed by the blood sect into a saint who served blood. The entire Soros royal city became bustling, and many people went to visit the blood temple every day, including players and indigenous people. At the same time, a large number of players from other cities also flocked to Soros. 3 days later, the door of the Pope's Hall slowly opened, and Duval and a group of high-ranking officials of the Church of War boarded a carriage and began to head to the location of the Blood Temple. Lorena also followed behind with members of the Arcane Council. As for the one walking in the front, it is the Golden Church. Unlike the Church of War and the Arcane Council, the Golden Church's entourage all held weapons and the atmosphere was heavy. A big battle was about to happen, and everyone could see it. Many players and indigenous residents followed along the way, with the largest number of people in front of the carriage where Lyre was. Although the battle between the Golden Church and the blood cult is exciting, those who gain benefits may be more popular. Nolan's acquisition of swordsmanship from Lyre made many people jealous. Lyre and Miria sat together, opposite Avian and Greta. Turning her head to look at Lyre, Milia asked strangely, "What bad idea are you planning again?" These days, Milia has been studying the new professions and skills of the Morning Star Law, and only learned about the invitation from the Blood King this morning. What bad intentions could I have? Lyre knew that Milia was asking about the invitation letter, and he chuckled and raised his eyebrows. Avian and Greta, who were standing opposite, looked puzzled as they listened to the conversation between the two. The carriage moved forward slowly, and after about half an hour, everyone arrived at the location of the Blood Temple. When everyone got off the carriage and saw the towering statue, they were all shocked. The divine blood of the Lord of Blood stands in front of the temple, and behind it is the huge Blood Temple. It is hard to imagine that such a huge temple can be built in less than half a month. Duval felt a hint of divinity in front of the statue in front of him, and the gods were watching here. He took a deep breath and looked in the direction of the Golden Church. Even the gods of the blood cult appeared. Now it was impossible for Fernando to wipe out the blood cult. The Blood Kings are all members of the heroic class, so what kind of existence is the Lord of Blood? I'm afraid that even if the Golden Pope himself comes, he won't be able to shake it. As everyone was staring at the statue of the Lord of Blood, a huge blood-red portal suddenly opened in front of the door of the Blood Temple, and blood elves in armor walked out of the portal. At the same time, blood flowed out of the portal like a river, turned into a red carpet, and gradually solidified. The blood elves stood in 2 rows on the blood-red carpet, knelt on one knee on the ground, waiting for the arrival of the king. Finally, when all the blood elves came out, a figure in a black robe also stepped out of the portal. Behind him, a beautiful blonde girl followed with her head down. The moment he saw the girl, Sylvia stood up suddenly. "Afanina, She shouted excitedly, her voice passing through the crowd around her and reaching the girl's ears. Afanina raised her head and glanced at her mother, her eyes trembling slightly, and finally lowered her head again. After being in the old dream for so long, her faith in gold had long been worn out. Sylvia was her mother, she would care about her, but the Golden Church was no longer important. She turned her head and looked to the other side, not at the bloody king in front of her, but at Lear in the crowd. The Blood King in front of her was just an incarnation. The person she truly loyal to was there. The Blood King walked towards the statue step by step, and other people kept coming out of the portal behind him: Sheila, Irina, Red Wolf Amber, and some high-level blood elves, but no Eno and Adele. These two little maids were related to Lear himself. In order to avoid being exposed, Lear did not bring the two girls out. Fernando looked at the heretics who kept coming out of the portal. As more and more people appeared, his expression became uglier. In addition to the Blood King, the Blood Sect actually has 3 extraordinary professionals, especially the Red Wolf. Even he felt an ancient sense of oppression. Heretic creatures that survived from ancient times. The believers of the Golden Church around were also shocked by the strength of the blood cult. Such a terrifying heretical sect should be conquered by the Church with all its strength, not just by a few of them. Calm down, Fernando scolded. Look at you guys. Are you scared? We are believers of gold. It is our duty to judge heretics. Are you going to back down because of the strength of the heretics? Fernando's rebuke restored the confidence of many timid gold believers. Fanatics are like this, they can be easily incited by the dogma they believe in. Seeing this scene, Fernando nodded and looked at the Blood King in front of him again. It's not that they didn't have any opportunities. Before coming to Soros, the Pope had already given him a backup plan. End of this chapter. Chapter 213, The Gift of Blood and False Gold. Second screenshot. Welcome, fellow people of blood. The Blood King walked to the front of the statue and looked at the crowd gathered around. There are ordinary citizens, powerful professionals, and countless players. Today the blood cult will be officially born as a new Orthodox religion, and everyone here will be a witness. Everyone knows the 3 great Orthodox religions. The Blood King continued: war, arcane, and gold. They spread their faith in the name of orthodoxy and are respected by the world. But there are more than 3 Orthodox religions. The Blood King suddenly raised his head, and Lillian's statue also lit up at this time. We came into this world, born from flesh and blood. Since ancient times, every human being and every living being has blood flowing in their bodies. Because of blood, we can live. Blood is the source of our life. And what the blood cult believes in is blood. The Blood King's voice became high-pitched, and his righteous words made everyone present fall into deep thought. That's right, everyone has blood flowing in their body, and without blood, life will die. This is common knowledge that has been known to people since ancient times. Looking at the quiet crowd below, a smile appeared on the face of the Blood King. Generally speaking, believing in blood gives people a very evil feeling, and it is easy to make people think of evil heretical sects using blood for sacrifice and doing some evil things. But through the expression of the Blood King, the definition of blood becomes sacred. Lear in the crowd had a smile on his face. Everything was going according to plan. He was instilling new ideas in everyone. War, arcane, gold could be orthodoxy, and so could blood. Every living being with blood flowing in its body is the people of blood, and you are protected by blood. The Blood King said loudly again. As these words came out, the tall statue of Lillian emitted a dazzling red light. The eerie red light might have been frightening before, but now everyone only felt solemnity. Under the illumination of the red light, everyone present clearly felt some changes in their bodies. They became stronger and seemed to have more energy. This is a gift from the Lord of Blood. The Blood King turned around and knelt on one knee respectfully in front of the statue. The entire front of the Blood Temple fell into silence. Everyone felt it incredible. The players in the crowd felt it even more clearly. According to their system prompts, the gift of the Lord of Blood had improved their physical attributes a little. Lear in the crowd watched this scene quietly. This was also part of the plan. The gifts granted by Lillian can directly improve the physical fitness of weak people. Professionals with higher levels can also receive slight physical enhancements. The stronger the person, the weaker the gift they receive. After all, these gifts are based on Lillian's divine power, and improving the physical fitness of these ordinary people and players has already consumed a lot of energy. The benefits gained by powerful professionals are few and unimportant. What's important is the huge number of ordinary people and players. If they get a little improvement in their physical fitness, the benefits will be huge. Having received the gift of blood, the blood cult will surely spread among these groups and will be recognized. This is what Lear needs. If ordinary people recognize the blood cult as the orthodox religion, the Golden Church will have to consider the impact if it wants to take action against the blood cult. The red light shone on the location of the Golden Church. Under the cover of the red light, everyone in the Golden Church also felt changes in their bodies. Fernando's face was so gloomy that it seemed as if water was about to drip out. He certainly saw through the Blood King's plan. It was indeed a good plan. Everyone, stay away from the red light, it is the curse of heretics. Fernando roared, trying to use the prestige of the Golden Sea to stir up people's emotions, but the citizens and players of Soros who heard this just glanced at Fernando. Players have a system panel that can tell at a glance whether it is a blessing or a curse. As for the citizens of Soros, they are all believers in war and only believe in Dival. A large number of citizens looked at Dival. At this time, Dival was feeling the changes in his body. His eyes became complicated and he turned to look at Fernando. Fernando, if such a gift is a curse, then I hope there will be more such curses. Dival said softly, exposing Fernando's lie with just one sentence. This is a gift from the Lord of Blood. In the name of the Pope of War, I would like to express my gratitude to you. Dival lowered his head slightly and saluted to the statue of Lilian. The citizens of Soros who saw this scene began to imitate Dival's actions, and even many players did the same. Fernando and many believers of the Golden Church stood there, looking like clowns under the contemptuous gazes of many people. The Golden Church? Ha, what a bunch of hypocritical villains. The Blood King, who was half kneeling in front of the statue, stood up and looked at Fernando. What did you say? Fernando became angry when he heard this. Am I wrong? The Blood King slowly walked to the side of Ophelia. You swept away other laws just to maintain your own status. There is no such thing as heretical law in this world. Every law has its own meaning, but you are indiscriminate. Once you find other laws, you call them heretical and judge them with righteousness. Isn't this hypocrisy? You are afraid of other laws competing for believers. You are just a bunch of selfish hypocrites. The sarcastic voices echoed in the square, and the faces of the believers of the Golden Church turned red, especially Fernando. He just falsely accused the gift of the Lord of Blood of being a curse, which seemed to prove this point. The Blood King glanced at Fernando and did not continue to ridicule him. Instead, he summoned the life-binding shackles and bound Ophelia. She is the saint of the Golden Church. After realizing the hypocrisy of gold, she joined the blood cult. The Blood King spoke again. Gold betrayed her, but blood will embrace all the people of blood. As the Blood King finished speaking, Lilian's statue once again shone with dazzling light, this time even brighter than the previous gift. Sylvia was anxious when she saw this scene. What are you going to do? I said, let her become a citizen of blood. The Blood King turned his head calmly. At this moment, the bright red light engulfed Ophelia. Lilian was hidden in the red light. She was very excited. There is a lot of golden law source in Ophelia's body. After absorbing it, her strength can be restored a lot, and the divine power that was just used up can also be replenished. The horrifying fluctuations of blood magic spread across the square, and the aura of the golden law in Ophelia's body was rapidly disappearing. Dival and Lorena were both a little shocked. The Blood King said that he would turn Ophelia into a follower of blood, but they didn't expect that she would directly devour the power of the golden law. If this continues, the Golden Saint Ophelia will completely become a member of the blood cult. Such an action was done in front of Fernando, which can be said to be a real break with the golden seed of eye in the red light. Ophelia twisted her body unconsciously. As Lilian devoured her, she felt her whole body resisting. This was the resistance of the golden law. Sylvia couldn't help it anymore, so she took out her scepter and rushed forward. At this moment, the red wolf Amber stood in front of Sylvia, staring at the woman in front of her with scarlet pupils. No one can disturb the goddess from eating. Get out of here! Sylvia was so angry that he started fighting. This time, Fernando also reacted and led the people of the Golden Sea to rush forward. The battle officially begins. The crowds gathered around dispersed, and Dival and Lorena also walked away. If they said they would not help, then they would not help. Lear also followed behind and watched the fun. Dival watched the battle between the two sides. The Blood King and Fernando fought each other, and the other three extraordinary professionals were also stopped by other extraordinary professionals of the Blood Sect. As for the high-level Golden Believers, they were stopped by the remaining Blood Elves, but the Blood Elves did not send out all their forces, they only ensured that the actions of the Golden Followers were delayed. It seemed that the Blood Cult had no intention of fighting the Golden Church to the death and was just passively defending. Fernando held a big sword in his hand. He was a judge, the most aggressive of the three major professions in the Golden Law. However, the Blood King in front of him was as agile as a poisonous snake. His powerful attack was easily dodged by the Blood King and could not cause any effective damage. Not far away, the aura of the Golden Law on Ophinia's body had become extremely thin. In a while, the Golden Saint would disappear. Fernando gritted his teeth, his eyes suddenly became fierce. He raised his sword. This time his target was no longer the Blood King, but Ophinia. He actually planned to kill Ophelia directly. This sudden scene shocked everyone present. Even Lear, who was off the court, did not expect such a thing to happen. This old man is really crazy. He would rather kill the saint than let the gold be tainted by blood. Stop. Sylvia on the other side was furious. Ophenia was her daughter. Even if she became a believer of blood, as long as she was still alive, she could still accept it, but now Fernando actually plans to kill Ophenia himself. The golden sword came in front of Ophenia. Ophenia opened her eyes and saw Fernando's hideous face. At this moment, the faith in gold completely dissipated in her heart. From the time she was imprisoned by Lear until now, the Golden Church did not seem to take her seriously. Only her mother had been looking for her whereabouts. She also tried to pray to the goddess of the Golden Rule, but as the one chosen by the goddess, she did not receive any response. Maybe gold has really abandoned her. A trace of sadness emerged in Ophinia's heart. In the Golden Temple, the Golden Law Goddess watched this scene, her face still calm. Ophinia was the one she chose and bestowed with the source of the Golden Law, but she really didn't care too much about Ophinia. She is a deity, and she bestowed the Golden Law essence upon Ophelia just to have a medium for divine descent. Because of the rules, gods cannot descend at will, especially in those isolated original places as Sylvia and Ophenia were both the mediums of God's descent arranged by her, and that was all. They were just tools after all. It seems that the person you chose is disappointed in you. A black-haired girl whispered behind the goddess of Golden Law. Just a tool. Anyway, she has been recruited by the man you like, right? The Golden Law Goddess shook her head, her eyes calm. She looked at the scene in the mirror again, looking at the Blood King and the mastermind hidden in the crowd. Honestly, I'm a little angry. The Golden Law Goddess narrowed her eyes. The person you chose has challenged my bottom line time and time again. It was like this when I was in Breefield, and it's the same now. After hearing the words of the goddess of Golden Law, Croto did not speak, but just stood there quietly. The Golden Palace fell into silence. The Golden Goddess of Law sighed, turned around, and looked at the girl in front of her. I am a god. How can I be bullied by mortals all the time? You can do it, as long as you don't hurt him. Croto finally spoke. Really? A smile appeared on the face of the Golden Law Goddess. Let me remind you that if you choose God's descent, your strength will be suppressed to half-saint in the initial place. The previous blasphemous true spirit was only half-saint. Croto said quietly. Half-saint is enough. I am not that ugly big snake, said the Golden Law Goddess confidently. At this moment in the square, Fernando's sword was about to tear Ophenia to pieces, and Sylvia rushed towards Fernando desperately. The incarnation of the Blood King also glowed with bright red light, and he was about to teleport in front of Ophelia with a blood echo, but at this moment, circles of golden chains surrounded the Blood King, and the blood magic power that Lear had just condensed suddenly dissipated. You are affected by the holy ring of radiance and enter a 30-second silent state, unable to use any active skills. The sudden system prompt made the Blood King pause for a moment, and Lear below also frowned. Sacred vessels, it seems that Fernando was still prepared. Lear shook his head and sighed helplessly. He waved his hand, and the night rose appeared in his hand. The next second, his body disappeared from the spot. Aslan's royal swordsmanship was brought to its peak. In just a moment, Lear appeared in front of Ophenia, stretched out his hands and held Ophenia in his arms, with the night rose lying across his body. Bang! A sound from a distance rang in my ears. The golden sword and the night rose collided with each other, and the sword body of the night rose bent into an amazing arc, but in the end Lear still blocked it. The magic power surged, blowing Lear's hair apart. Ophenia opened her eyes and looked at the young man who was close to her. When she saw the blood incarnation of the Blood King being restrained, she thought she was going to die. Will Lier come to save her? Even if she died, it shouldn't have any impact. The reputation of the blood cult has spread because of the blood gift just now, but if this saint died at the hands of Fernando, the prestige of the Golden Sea might be hit again. She was just an insignificant tool. Tears welled up in the corners of Ophinia's eyes. She reached out her hands and hugged Lier's neck tightly. "Take me away," she said. End of this chapter. Chapter 214, Lier's killing intentions and the goddess of the golden law. Ophina's voice echoed in Lier's ears. This was the first time Lier saw Ophina so weak. Even in Brayfield, in the dark basement, when she was bullied by him, Ophina had never shown such an expression, and now, Ophina is like an abandoned little girl. In fact, Ophina still had expectations for the golden rule in her heart, and Lier knew it. Even those who choose to become believers of blood agree only reluctantly. If Ophina were asked to take action against the Golden Church, Lier felt that even if she became a believer of blood, Ophina would probably not be able to do it. But gold has betrayed you, Lier said softly. Maybe it's not betrayal, but the gods above have never really cared about a believer. There are many believers of the golden rule, and Ophina was given the source of the golden rule. This is a gift, but to the gods, I give you a gift, and it has nothing to do with you. You're just a lucky guy, that's all. Ophina buried her head in Lier's arms and said nothing more. This time, everyone present finally reacted. Lier's sudden move was unexpected by everyone. Is the War Pope planning to become the enemy of the Golden Church? Fernando roared. Thus the chance to cleanse the stain from the gold was destroyed, and the chains binding the Blood Lord were about to dissipate, and the Blood Lord was already charging towards him. The Ring of Glory silences skills, but professionals at the extraordinary level are strong enough just by relying on their physical fitness. In response to Fernando, Lier gave him a cold look. He waved the Night Rose, deflected the greatsword, and then, before Fernando could react, he kicked him in the chest at terrifying speed. Lier used all his strength in this kick. Fernando's eyes almost popped out, and he felt like a meteorite hit his chest. The next moment, he flew out like a cannonball, rolling on the ground for dozens of meters before stopping. Seeing this scene, the golden believers around were all horrified, and Sylvia also came to Lier at this time. Looking at his daughter lying in Lier's arms, his face was full of anxiety. Ophina. Sylvia stretched out her hand and was about to hug Ophina in Lier's arms, but at this moment, a bright red light flashed, and Ophina floated into the air from Lier's arms. In the strange red light, a vague shadow could be seen. It was Lillian. The source of the golden law was completely devoured at this moment, and Ophina only felt a strange power surging in her body. The blood magic turned into roses that bloomed around Ophina's body, and finally completely enveloped Ophina. Ophina. Sylvia became more and more anxious as she watched the scene, but at this time the golden chains that bound the Blood King also dissipated. The Blood King stood in front of Sylvia. Gold abandoned your daughter, and now she belongs to blood. The Blood King said in a deep voice, "Do you want that old man to kill your daughter again?" Hearing this, Sylvia paused. She could also feel that the power of the golden law in Ophina's body had completely disappeared, and now Ophina was no longer the respected saint. From a saint to a believer of blood, can the Golden Church accommodate Ophina? Can Fernando let Ophina go? Sylvia clenched her fists, and in her heart, her respect for the golden rule slowly disappeared. Lier stood aside at this time, just watching quietly, as if it was not him who had just saved Ophelia. Not far away, Fernando, who had fallen to the ground, also struggled to stand up. He raised his head with a ferocious look and stared at Lier. "Damn boy, how dare you do this to me?" Fernando's roar once again focused everyone's attention on Lier. Dival and Lorena also came out from the crowd. They were also frightened by Lier's sudden move just now. Even if Fernando wanted to kill Ophina, this was the family affair of the Golden Church and was not something Lier should interfere with. Feeling everyone's gaze, Lier said calmly, "When I was in Brayfield, Her Highness the Saint took care of me, so I took action." After hearing this, the anger on Fernando's face did not diminish much, and Dival and Lorena also had expressions that said they would never believe you. Lier did not continue to explain, but just looked at Ophelia, who was wrapped in roses. Sylvia looked at the handsome young man in front of her, always feeling as if something had been overlooked by her. Just now, the way Ophelia hugged Lier tightly didn't look like she was just taking care of Lier. Instead, it seemed as if she was relying on Lier, which was an action that only happened between two extremely close people. I have to say, sometimes, women's sixth sense is still very scary. Seeing that he was ignored by Lier, Fernando's expression became even more distorted. He looked at Dival. "Dival, shouldn't you explain yourself?" "Explain?" Duval shook his head, a trace of disgust in his eyes. Special Executive Officer Lear's position in the Church of War is higher than mine. I have no right to interfere with Special Executive Officer Lear's decision. Dival's words made Fernando shut up, and the Blood King also came in front of Fernando, leaving no chance for Fernando to disturb Lear again. You have no chance anymore. Either get out of here or I will kill all of you here. The cold voice of the Blood King resounded throughout the square. The Golden Believers who had stopped fighting looked at each other and then at Fernando. From the outset, this was a battle that was difficult to win, and believers in gold knew it. The reason they fought was Fernando. If the old judge can kill the Blood King with his sword, they still have a chance to eliminate the blood cult. Fernando's expression became uncertain at this time, and he glanced at the golden ring on his hand. This is the holy artifact, the Ring of Glory, given to him by the Pope before his departure. It has the terrifying ability to silence the target. The Pope asked him to strike at the critical moment to catch the Blood King off guard and then take the opportunity to kill him. Fernando didn't care too much about this. Fernando did not take the Blood King and the blood cult seriously. He was just trying to eliminate a heretical sect, which had 4 extraordinary professionals. He even felt that the Pope was making a fuss by giving him the Ring of Glory. It was not until today that he truly witnessed the power of the blood cult. This feeling became even more profound during the battle with the Blood King. Fernando felt the terror of the Blood King, a feeling of oppression he had only felt from the Pope. He even felt that even with the Ring of Glory, he was not sure of killing the Blood King, so he gave up the idea of eliminating the blood cult. Since the blood cult could not be eliminated, the prestige of the Golden Church had to be preserved to the greatest extent. The only option is to kill the saint who betrayed gold. Killing the former saint with one's own hands might have an impact on the prestige of the Golden Church, but it would not matter as long as public opinion was spread and Affinina was described as a traitor. Judge heretics. The betrayed saint is also a heretic. This is the duty of the Golden Church, so it stands to reason that as long as Affinina dies, the Golden Church will still have the final say, right? As for the truth, who cares? Rather than letting a saint who joined a heretical sect affect the prestige of the Golden Church, it is better to let the saint become a dead traitor. Killing the traitorous saint can restore the prestige of the Golden Church. This was Fernando's idea, but now the idea is shattered. Everyone looked at Fernando, waiting for his decision. Liar also looked over, with a hint of murderous intent in his eyes. Maybe we should leave all the people from the Golden Church here. He fell into deep thought. At first, he had no intention of killing these Golden Believers. He just wanted to invite the Golden Church to come, and then humiliate them severely in front of many players and Soros citizens to enhance the prestige of the blood cult. With the enhanced prestige, we will be more confident when uniting with other heretical sects in the future, but now it seems that it is still too conservative when it comes to enhancing prestige. How can simply humiliating these Golden Believers compare to killing all of them? Simply killing all these Golden Believers would mean declaring a complete war with the Golden Church. Is he afraid? There was a fierce gleam in Lear's eyes. There was nothing he was afraid of. Thinking of this, a ferocious red light flashed in the Blood King's eyes, and his aura suddenly changed. Fernando, Dival, and Lorena keenly sensed the changes in the Blood King, which was a terrifying murderous intent. Since you don't speak, I will help you choose. The Blood King's voice became colder. Amber, Sheila, and Irina on the side also received instructions, and the originally perfunctory battle now became full of murderous intent. While the believers of gold were still waiting for Fernando to make a decision, they took action again, and this time it was a killing move. You dare to kill us? Fernando looked at the Blood King, who rushed in front of him with a shocked face. Why not? The Blood King showed a ferocious smile. Terrifying magical power erupted in the square in front of the temple. It was no longer a test like before, but a real life and death battle. The onlookers also noticed the abnormality and stepped back in fear. Dival and Lorena also showed shocked expressions. Did the blood cult actually intend to kill the believers of the Golden Church? There are 3 golden high priests and Fernando here. If they all die, it will be a real big deal. The battle situation became tense in an instant. The Blood King now held in his hand an extraordinary heavy rapier. It was not the Blood Rose, but a high-level rapier that Lear had asked the Blood Elves craftsman to make. With the blessing of the Blood Swirl, it was elevated to an extraordinary level. Although it is far inferior to the Bloody Rose, it is sufficient for use. The new heavy sword inherited the skill of the Deaththorn piercing. Lear held the heavy sword high, and in the bloody light, the heavy sword turned into a bloody spear, and finally he threw it out with all his strength. The blood-red spear was like a flash of lightning, and it arrived in front of Fernando in an instant. Fernando felt the breath of death and wanted to dodge, but the speed of the blood-red spear was too fast. At the critical moment, a dazzling holy light lit up in front of Fernando. A blonde figure appeared out of nowhere, and with the appearance of the figure, a golden barrier appeared in front of the figure. The blood-red spear pierced into the barrier fiercely, and after a pause, it broke through the shield. Seeing this scene, the blonde figure frowned, and a more dazzling golden light emanated from around his body. Finally, the blood-red spear was blocked by the golden light. The sudden appearance of the figure startled everyone. When Dival and others saw the figure clearly, their eyes widened. This is a blonde woman with an extremely beautiful appearance and a holy aura all over her body. Goddess of the Golden Law. Lear's pupils suddenly contracted. This was not the first time he had seen the goddess of the Golden Law. When he was in Brefeld, the goddess of the Golden Law had appeared before and had glanced at him. At that time, the goddess of the Golden Law seemed to know his identity, but Lear didn't understand why she didn't expose him. "You've gone too far, follower of blood," a solemn voice sounded in the square. The goddess of Golden Law looked at the Blood King in front of her, but her gaze did not stay for too long. She passed over the Blood King's body and looked at Lear in the crowd behind. Lear's expression darkened. Was it really a bit too much? The goddess of Golden Law came down personally. Emilia on the side also noticed the gaze of the goddess of the Golden Law. She frowned and stood in front of Lear, feeling Milia's movements. Lear smiled, feeling protected. "That's the goddess of the Golden Law," Milia whispered. "I know." Lear nodded. "Can you handle it?" She descended to the original land, and her class was suppressed to semi-saint, the same level as the blasphemous spirit. However, she possesses a suppressed divine realm, and her strength will be far stronger than that of the blasphemous spirit. Milia's expression was a little heavy, and she also felt a little pressure. She is currently also at the semi-saint level, but her strength is far from recovering to the normal level. She is not sure if she can face the golden goddess of law in front of her. "My goddess!" Fernando, who was originally panicked, looked at the figure in front of him and became excited. He knelt down madly, knelt on the ground devoutly, and licked the ground directly under the feet of the goddess of Golden Law. The golden goddess of law, who had not appeared for many years, appeared again to save him. What an honor! At this moment, Fernando felt that it would be worth it even if he died on the spot. After a brief shock, the other gold believers also knelt down one by one. Dival and Lorena also bowed slightly respectfully. Even if they are not believers in gold, they should show due respect to the gods. The Soros citizens who were watching from all sides also saluted to show their respect. In the huge square, only the players, Lear, Milia, and the people of the blood cult were left standing there. Motionless. End of this chapter.